Good evening. The Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, September 24th, 2019 will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Heitman.
Here.
Trustee Dempsey.
Here.
Clerk Borba here. Trustee Dorshevitz.
Here.
Trustee Kermy.
Here.
Treasurer Clinton.
Here.
Supervisor Heisey.
Here.
All present, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Lieutenant Dan Kudra.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Next is the item C, approval of the agenda. What I'd like to do tonight is move the Andover SAD up to item number 2 because we do have people here and we don't want you to suffer through the whole meeting and get out there and enjoy the evening again. And then we'd also like to pull item 6 that will be coming back at our October 8th meeting. Do I have support?
Parks and Eats, okay.
Yeah.
That won't delay their opening or anything, will it?
It's a storm drain agreement, so it should not
Okay.
impact them. Okay, so is there a motion,
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Clerk?
I move for the approval of the meeting as amended for Tuesday, September 10th, 2019.
September 24th, yes. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Heitman.
Thank you. 24th.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, let's move on to item D, approval of the consent agenda. Comments or questions?
Yeah, just quickly, there's a chart in here, but there's no key.
Yeah,
This one.
That happened last time. It's
That's
a repeat.
Is that what was passed out here?
Police and fire.
Okay. You guys
So
might
that's
want
the
to,
police department and fire, yeah. We have the
Alright.
exact same problem
Right.
on the 10th.
Lieutenant Kudra, do you want to comment on that?
do you know what this is?
I have no idea what that is.
Well,
We'll,
you did 46% of something, and you did it well.
Well, hey, we try our best.
we will modify that exhibit and email it out to everybody at a later date.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
I have a question about mutual aid. I guess I never noticed, but Huron Valley now is shown as
First time.
we received mutual aid from Huron Valley?
Yeah, sometimes that code gets entered in there when we don't respond to a run, and they do because we're busy elsewhere.
So it's not just a quirk, it's real.
It's real. It's been going on for about 5 years. It happens very infrequently, but every once in a while you'll see it in the report. I think it was in one time last year, and a couple times the year before that.
Speaking of, you all set, Chuck?
Yeah.
Speaking of mutual aid, you know where I'm going next. The idea of mutual aid is mutual. Once again, Canton, we gave 9, we received 2. Most of these mutual aids were also at Canton Center and Salts, their medical facility area, right? That's quite a ways outside of Plymouth Township, okay? So once again, our guys were outside. I'm glad, we have things on the agenda tonight that are going to address that, but sometime we have to start wondering, when is mutual aid going to be mutual? I don't know. Do we ever address that, Chief?
Well, we do, and I discuss this with Canton's chief regularly on a weekly basis. The majority, almost every single one of these instances where we're providing it to them, they are in fact providing it to Westland, who is providing it to Redford or one of their bordering communities. So in Canton's case, that's predominantly, where they're going. And as I've said before, there are only 2 advanced life support fire departments that surround Canton, Plymouth Township and Westland. And we're kind of the only place they can call that for help because Van Buren to the south of them doesn't provide that service. Superior to the west does not provide that service.
And they don't use HVA.
There you go. There comes a time where we have to worry about our own more than mutually helping others, I think. I don't know.
Well,
It bothers me every time I look at this, and, I mean, we're down at Michigan Avenue, we're, Ridge Road and south of Getty's. We're pretty far away from Plymouth
Which
Township.
one of those is the senior center?
That's the Canton Center, 951 North Canton Center, and 1051.
Is that-
So,
That's not Waltonwood.
no,
is
Canton Health-
951 their lockup? Or is it, I'm not sure what that address is, to be honest with you.
The rehab center is the one on Getty's, and, it's a lot of different things that take
So
up
it's predominantly medical residence
Yeah.
facilities?
951 North Canton
That's what
Center.
it is, yeah. That's Salts, down at Salts, so that's quite a ways, so. Again, I'll get on my high horse and ask if we can do anything. I know they've been trying to hire people in Canton.
They did. They also had several employees who were injured for various reasons and off-duty. I know they recently received a SAFER grant. They've hired personnel, so hopefully we'll see a reduction in their aid. But again, when we have a structure fire, we call them every single time.
Yeah, you're right, it's Salts.
Yeah, again, it's 9 to 2, and pretty much I see
Oh,
this every
that's
month, the same
Tudor time of Canton.
kinds of numbers. So,
This particular address is Tudor time of Canton.
What, 951?
Yeah,
Tudor
This
time,
one right here.
it's a child care facility.
right next to the other facilities, the rehab centers or whatever, yeah.
The other one is 1051 and 1150.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Let's turn to the police. I can't see the page numbers because they're punched through. It's that one page where we were at police and fire response, where it was nothing. Let's go 2 pages, 1 and 2 past that.
Sorry, say that
Something
again?
out of 48. It's less than 48.
48, out of 148,
No, out of 148.
Where you at again?
It's in the police report.
yeah.
It looks like this. I'll hold it up. It's a line graph.
Oh, yeah. That is
This one?
Right there.
calls per hour, yeah.
That's a new addition? And can you explain it a little?
Abandoned calls.
I know that Assistant Chief Brothers and our communications supervisor have been trying to revamp the monthly reports. I believe this reflects calls per hour received by our dispatch center.
What is PSAP? Say it again. PSAP.
PSAP,
What does that stand for? I'm sorry.
Public safety
Public
answering point.
Public Safety Answering Point.
Answering point?
Jeez, nice job.
Know my acronyms. How come so many abandoned calls? They hang up and call back, or?
I know that we get a lot of calls where, they're hang-up calls, and we'll try and call them back. Oftentimes, what that ends up being is somebody's cell phone has dialed 911 and it's in their pocket.
Mhm.
So the fire chief points out that the Apple Watches cause issues too. They're hooked to people's phones. A lot of times with many of the businesses that we have here, they're trying to dial internationally, and that creates a lot of 911 calls.
They're
So-
dialing, you mean, they're foreign nationals that don't know how to dial the phone here? Is that what it
I'm
is?
not sure what it is. I
Well,
know
maybe we need to do some
often-
training.
Oftentimes, I've
Wow.
gone to some of those
That's-
911 calls, and it's
that's
people
a
trying
hell
to
of an
dial
assumption.
internationally.
Well, it could be because you dial the
was
phone
huge.
differently here.
Wow, okay.
Well, he's the one that brought it up.
Round them all up and let's train them all.
So we may need to have some, if they're generating a problem for us, we may need to call up their boss over there and explain what they're doing and how to avoid it. Then the next page, I'm looking here, the 3.1, this has a percent, go down one, at the bottom, there's 3.1. It says the standard appears to be different than what's being in the green. The green is less than or equal to 15 and 40 seconds. And then it says 90% within 10 seconds. So why would you plot something that wasn't I'm trying to understand how the standard related to what's plotted here. we may need to do a little more homework on this and education or whatever for us. But I looked at that and I had a hard time understanding it.
Okay. We can-
Lieutenant Kudra, maybe we could have Lieutenant Brothers send an email out to everybody kind of detailing this.
That would be helpful.
I think that'd be appropriate.
But it is pretty impressive when you look at 90% of all 911 calls are within the first 10 seconds. That number just, it got me, that's pretty damn good. So congrats on that.
Any other questions on the agenda, on the item D, consent agenda? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Clerk?
I move for the approval of the consent agenda for September 24th, 2019.
Thank you. Motion's made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Dempsey. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, next up is item E, public comments and questions, limited to 3 minutes. This is not your only opportunity during the evening. We will also have another public comment time at the end of the meeting, and we do encourage comments and questions on individual agenda items as long as they pertain to that particular topic. So at this point, anybody? The Andover guys, we'll be getting to you very shortly. Okay, we're going to move on to item F1. This is the paramedic ambulance services agreement with Huron Valley. We did provide you with a second version late today. The attorneys for HVA had some more changes in the insurance realm, which I believe are actually favorable to the township. They've been reviewed and approved and amended by Kevin Bennett. Kevin, do you have anything else to add at this time?
The only thing I would add is that the provisions that were requested by HVA's counsel pertain to enforcement of the indemnification provision, whereby HVA would indemnify the township. They're strictly procedural, not substantive, and they all appear reasonable.
Okay.
What section are they in?
They're in section 6B.
Any comments or questions from the board or the public? See, Mr. Savage is here from HVA. Is this so? You don't have to come to our meetings anymore? Is that the story? Wow, they're free. Yeah, right. Okay.
I have a question or a request. This is a very short duration contract, like I said last time. I think we need to extend it or make it automatically renew. There are some undertows to want to revert to the original request in the future, I think, to eliminate private ambulance. So I'm concerned that a short duration is setting that up too quickly. We'll have a new board here in 1 year. I think we should extend it to 5 years.
Okay.
You want me to make? I'll make a motion.
You made that. You can do whatever you want, but
All right.
I know you made that comment at the study session that we had last week.
All right.
This is the agreement that we've obviously tentatively agreed to with HVA.
All right. I move that we change the agreement duration for a period of 5 years. So that would be to September 30th of 2024. 2024. It's 5 years.
Motion has been made. Is there a second? Hearing no motion in support, the motion fails. At this time, I move that the Board of Trustees adopt Resolution 2019-09-2487, authorizing the paramedic ambulance services agreement with Huron Valley Ambulance, Inc., and authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign on behalf of the township. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Vorva. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Dempsey.
Yes.
Trustee Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next is item 2. This is the Andover SAD. Old item 4. So I think we will turn it over to George Sackhoff from OHM and Pat Felrath. Gentlemen, if you could come forward. We do have at least 2 people here from Andover. Okay. You you guys can just take a seat for now. I mean, you're free to talk, but we'll get to you. Don't worry. We want to make sure that you're totally on board here.
Thank you.
Patrick?
Thank you. Good evening. This is the request for the board to approve the preliminary engineering phase for the special assessment district for Andover Lake subdivision for a concrete road rehabilitation project. Do we have the map of the subdivision? So here the special assessment district is delineated for the subdivision. There's 130 total residential units within this proposed district. 55 of them are site condos. They look like subdivision lots, but they are site condos. It's one condo that occupies 3 parcels. And the 2 brown parcels, number 1 and number 59, and then there's a white parcel there, number 28. The color code, the 2 brown, they're color-coded brown just to indicate that we had some partial support from those site condos in those 2 parcels, where we didn't have any support from that parcel down there at the southwest portion. But that's all one condo. It's called the Andover Lakes Village Condominium, and they are included within this proposed district. And like I said, there's about 55 condo units, and the rest, 75, are the subdivision residential units. So we have an updated tally, because today we verified one signature that was not counted. So I'll turn that in to the clerk for recording.
Which one is it in the list here?
It's on
lot number-
X6. X's Court.
I'm sorry, I can't hear. Lot
Okay,
number what?
so it's actually included in that parcel, that condominium. So that should be colored brown because we have one vote in that.
1 vote, and how many units are in that vote?
For that parcel has 5 units. So there's 1 in support that we included
1
in
out of
this
5, and
tally.
so it was previously not signed as lot number 10, and now it is signed. Is that right?
It,
I'm looking at this list that was handed out in the board packet.
No, so it's got to be on Essex Court.
The board packet has lots that go from 1 to 78.
it's lot number 28, as shown on the map.
So you prorated it.
How we typically do that to the condos. So the updated tally then is a little bit better than what you have in your packet. Based on front footage, we have 54.8%, which is the legal requirement, if you recall, based on front footage. And it turns out that those signatures for that front footage represents 53.1% of the units too. So they met the 2 criteria that we've done in the past, both front footage and number of units.
Did you get all of the title holders, all of the names on the title for each one?
Yes.
Whether it's 1, 2,
Husbands
or
and
more?
wives, yeah.
The clerk verified all the signatures, and now we require
Or all? You require all?
all of them on the deed, correct. So having said that, per our process, since we have enough in regard to the support, we come before you tonight to request authorization for our consultant engineer, OHM, to conduct preliminary engineering. And really, the objective of that study is to ultimately come up with a cost estimate that we can subsequently give to the residents at first an informational meeting and then another petition for our new revised procedure for them to garner signatures to move forward. So we got a preliminary engineering. Again, we have a cost proposal from OHM that details the costs of the items that are required under our preliminary engineering task that's outlined in our procedure.
Is it the 25-year-old procedure, or is it the new procedure with
It's
two
the new procedure.
with two petitions?
It's the new procedure with the two petitions, and
And this is the first petition.
correct. That now considers the actual cost of the preliminary engineering for your authorization.
Okay.
But we altered that first petition to be 50% of the total units and frontage.
And in this case, it just happened to work out that way. You know, depending on how the setup of the association is, sometimes it will and sometimes it won't. In this particular instance, just about as soon as you hit 50% of the front footage, you got 50% of the signature of the lots.
Well, this is
Because
unique
they're all
anyway.
about the same size.
Yeah, that's why.
Well, one of the leaders of the petition drive had indicated that we had confused him and changed the rules in the beginning. We'll hear about that, I guess, later. But
No, that's
so
just,
now I know what it is.
yeah, that's just that he was informed about our last discussion. But in this case, he didn't have to worry about it because he met both criteria. I was
Oh,
just
so
informing him.
the concern was
He would have
of
to go
our
get more.
last board meeting discussion?
Yes,
Okay, that wasn't clear in the writing.
yes. That's what he thought, that he was going to have to do more, when in reality, he'd already met the requirement because he happened to hit both as a matter of just
All right, we
happened.
got lucky.
got lucky.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I want to hear more about the engineering, the soil borings, what you're going to do, a little background. When was this concrete poured last? It's pretty new concrete,
Yeah,
so that's why I'm concerned about spending a lot of money on boring.
yeah. I mean, typically the borings are used to confirm the depth of the concrete, to confirm the subgrade conditions. I mean, obviously there's issues with the integrity of the pavement, or the residents wouldn't be initiating the work. So it is important for us to know the depth of the concrete, the subgrade conditions. We'll do a site walk of the whole subdivision. We'll rough out areas that we think we may want to do slab replacements, or larger areas of replacement, or crack sealing. We need to quantify those areas so we can come up with an accurate cost. So that's really the early part of the project, is all the field work. Then we'll come back, we'll come up with quantities, we'll come up with preliminary pay items. That'll help us put together a cost estimate, and then we'll prepare everything for the presentation to the residents. In there also, we try to meet with Wayne County because we need to know that they're on board with the proposed scope, because ultimately they do have to issue the permit for the project. It is their right of way. So we'll set up a meeting with the county permits division. We'll go meet with them. We'll go over the proposed improvements, make sure they buy into the work, and then we finalize the cost, the figures, the preliminary work items, and make the presentation.
What year was this concrete poured?
I don't know the exact year, but I assume it's in the early 90s, just based on
Late
the
90s.
area. But
Yeah.
Ooh, wow.
yeah, it's typical of that area.
It was just over, it failed in 20 years. which is
Yeah, I
pretty
mean, the
quick.
80s and 90s were typical for the ASR.
So that is what
Do
the
they
failure
have
mode
that-
is
they
the
have that
ASR?
chemical?
It could be ASR. I mean, that was typical in that time frame, is what I'm saying. Some of
ASR.
it could be subgrade related. I mean, at that time, Wayne County was pouring concrete typically on clay subgrade, which isn't typically the the best way to do it, what we know today. So it could be subgrade issues, it could be ASR, it
Say-
could be a combination of the two,
ASR is the additive.
alkali, silica
That was
reaction.
what caused all
The reaction between the silica sand and the cement.
It's a mix problem and chemical problem.
reactivity, yeah.
all the
Other
concrete
question
from that
is,
era fell apart.
Okay, one at a
Cause
time.
that. It can cause like the blowout at
Scale.
the joints. Yeah.
All scaled.
Well, not so much scaling, but a lot of times you'll see it at like corners of the joints where you get water there, and you'll see that blowout. That's typically ASR. Or it
What-
could be some other material deficiency. But
What causes a concrete that is only 15 or 20 years old to pit?
well, a lot of times the pitting and scaling happens quickly after they pour it. If they don't finish it properly, if there's too much moisture on the surface, typically you get that initial scaling or pitting. Typically that's not a structural issue, but more of an aesthetic issue.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
yes.
comments?
So last week it was 14,000 was the cap. This week it's 15. So our new policy is we do an estimate for every one. It's going to be variable or not the fixed like we used to be at 7,000. And the reason why I ask is because it's not completely true that this is no cost to the residents. All it does is if they decided not to go forward, it spreads the cost to every resident in Plymouth Township.
Well, the other thing is this one is not, some of the ones we've seen are, overwhelming. This one is just a couple notches above 50%. So it's possible some people could withdraw.
Well, that's what my concern is. It's a good idea to do this, but if we do a lot of other things with drainage, we may need to have some options so that if drainage is a problem or you need to bring in a lot of aggregate, which is going to drive up the cost, the residents can make the choice of, yes, bring in that aggregate and work on drainage if it's really bad, or no, we don't want to do that. There's a judgment call.
Of course, that's more responsibility than on these guys to explain, here's your
Yeah.
$1,000 option and $2,000 and $3,000 option as you go, right? As long as they understand that going in, that's all right.
Yeah, I think that would require some thought because they can come back with a series of options, like a menu, with different prices. Then we have to consider, well, how are we gonna go about getting support, or are we going to take a vote on the various options, have a petition for each option? It's going to break up the vote likely. We thought about this before, and we didn't come back with recommendation because we didn't think there was a good mechanism where you can have a menu of alternatives. That's why we always relied on our engineer to come back what they thought was the best economic viable alternative based on their engineering and go with that option.
Right.
presented
I
at
understand
the
that, but
informational meeting.
my judgment is if I lived there, I'd want to know.
No, it's a good point. I don't
I'd
disagree
like
with
to,
you.
if it wasn't affordable, let's say it comes in at 20,000 and per unit, and you could do it for 12 if you didn't bring in
Scale it down, right.
10,000 yards of gravel.
Yes. No, I completely understand it, and I think they're aware of that concern too, which is why they don't typically come back with the $20,000 per lot recommendation. They're trying to balance the fix against the affordability.
Okay, the other question then, the amount for the future, are we going to vary it, a custom estimate every time we do this, or is it going to be a cap?
Well, I think, so last week's estimate was $14,800.
Right.
Today's $15,000. So I think the idea was to come back with a specific estimate.
So
because these
we're going to do
projects are
specific
different.
estimates. All right.
Yeah, and they'll turn out to be more or less the same if they're similar sized projects like this one against Kelly Farms last week.
All right. I'm just trying to keep it from creeping up to 20, 25,
Right.
30. That's too much money for the township to
No.
be wagering.
Yep.
I think Patrick explained last week about the difference between the 7, which has been for
Yeah, there was,
quite a while, to where we're at today. And actually,
right, that was
players
the
are-
concern.
Anything else from the board? Okay, public, any of the Andover folks, come on up. We just need your name and address, that's all. And make sure they have the right mic there.
My name is Thomas Fedewa, and I'm at 12933 Wendover Drive.
And I am Tom Davey, and I am at 13125 Andover Drive. I'll start off here. So basically, first of all, thank you guys for your service, you guys as well. And I know we were discussing HVA a little bit there, and I'm just thankful for them. You know, a couple years ago, they came to my house within 3 minutes and saved my life. So just, you know, very thankful for them as a service that the township provides. So
Great.
Anyway, I just want to get going. You know, we understand we're barely over the 50% threshold, and we also understand there's probably going to be 10, 15 that might fall off, you know, when the cost comes out. But I'm pretty confident after having the meeting we had, the first informational meeting we had with this gentleman, and there's a similar project that was done just south of us in Plymouth Commons. I've driven through there a lot, and the repairs that they had through there looks very similar to what we might have done. And they projected somewhere in the 5,000 to 9,000 per house range. We know it can be more, but you know, there was some concerns as Litchfield Drive was another one, I think is the street. Is that correct, Pat? Is it Litchfield, the one that you guys are? Yeah, so that one's where they have to replace the whole neighborhood, and that's like 30 grand. So when we had that informational meeting and people heard that, there was a lot of people that were like, I am not signing that petition. And so that was kind of one of the throwbacks we had early on. And as well on that, we also had some with, you know, people they wanted to know what the number was. So initially when we started this, it was one petition. We were signing, and then, I came and met with Jerry, and he's like, it's going to be 2 petitions. And, you know, so once that came out, it was easier for me to get a few more signatures because people they kind of knew, hey, we're just signing up for the investigation now. Then we're going to get a cost, and we know what we're going to get. And I really think if it falls somewhere in that number, I'm very confident even if 10 or 15 fall off, I'm very confident that between Tom and myself, and we have a couple others that were out getting signatures, I'm very confident that there's other people that we've talked to that they just want to know the number before they sign. They don't want to sign up for a blank number and all of a sudden, hey, I'm 30 grand, I got to drop over 3 grand a year for 10 years. I'm trying to sell my house. It's, you know, there's a lot of concerns with that, but there's no doubt in my mind that we can get that done. But also on that, you know, you guys talk about the concrete, 97-ish, it was built, but there's been a lot of debate as to when this work was done, but there was some very bad damage in the early 2000s, especially on Wendover Drive. And, you know, the township, as much as we talked to the township, they never said they'd done this, but everyone that was on the board in the neighborhood that lived in that area said that in the early mid-2000s, the township came through and fixed sections in that neighborhood. And they cut out sections and they did concrete. And every one of those sections they did is absolute garbage now. Like it is like crumbled and it's bad. I don't know if it was bad concrete. I don't know if it was wet ground. I don't know what it was, but the township, and I don't know what it was. I'm not blaming the township, but I'm just saying there was faulty work done. And I know 20 years roads are going to break down, but that really is where most of the problems are in our neighborhood.
So there may have been bond money left over that the township hired someone to do it?
Because there was no permits. Like we called Wayne County. We were turned back and forth between Plymouth Township and Wayne County. And
because sometimes bond money is left over.
Do you know when that was? I don't recall that.
People were saying like 2004, 2006, just somewhere in there. So I moved in the neighborhood 03, you know, so I wasn't aware of the work being done because I'm on Andover and our road's pretty good. Wendover is just a mess. And also Andover West attaches to our neighborhood. So a lot of those work trucks were going down Wendover, which initially was a court at the end. And they opened it up into Andover West. So all these trucks. So I think there was subpar concrete work initially. Builder did what they did. They got out of there. And then township came in. They tried to fix it up and put a Band-Aid on it. And unfortunately, it was, you know, they did the right thing, but it was not good concrete. So it's a lot worse. So we're hoping that you guys can give us the support we need because we really want to get these roads fixed. It's been the focus of our meetings for years. And this is my 3rd year on the board. And we had guys like Tom and this other guy, Dave, that really pushed me into, you know, getting this done. And, you know, we really want to get it done.
When did you start
Thanks,
the petitions?
The bottom line, the way I see it, is we owe it to our residents to understand what the cost is to get the roads fixed. I mean, like Tom said, you know, these roads are, you know, 97, okay, and they were built on clay, okay? I'm a mechanical engineer, not a civil engineer, but I know that's not right, okay? Come on. Let's belly up, do it right, get a cost estimate so we can do the right thing for our residents.
Is Essex Court asphalt?
Yes.
Yes, it is, and
Private road.
that's a private road.
That's why we have a hard time getting votes. We have 2 private roads, and those courts don't want it, because their mentality is, why are we going to pay for your roads if we pay for our roads? Well, you got to drive on
Yeah.
all the roads.
And then we got one guy that says, hey, I drive through the sub to get to my house, right? And he's bellying up, okay? So good
That's
for him.
logical. If you drive through it and use it, users pay.
That's
When
right.
did you start your petition drive?
But do you remember that organizational meeting was?
Good picture, Bob.
Mhm.
Mid to late May we started, then when we turned the signatures in, there was like 10 that got shot back because it was, maiden names, it wasn't the right, whatever it was. And
Yeah.
so we got most of those fixed, and then we ended up we were able to get a few more, and then, when, we just got towards the end, and that was, got tired of knocking at that point.
Yeah,
We
we
had
found
enough.
some good ones.
So we really want to work with you guys, and we want to do what's right,
Look at that one.
keep our home values up, do what's right for the township. So let's work together, eh?
Yeah, in
Look,
fact,
is that one of the ones that got replaced?
Yeah.
is that with concrete?
Yeah.
Actually, I think
Circa 2003, 2004, there's no record.
that was being turned back to gravel.
Yeah.
Looks like Litchfield.
Of course, that looks like mine
Yeah.
after the SAD.
Well, I think it's great you're doing this, but the township, you don't have to have the township do this. If you want to do it on your own, you can. And people have done that.
Yeah.
There's been at least one subdivision that did it on their own, and they saved a lot of money. But it took a lot of work, and
Project management.
yeah, it took somebody who really knew what they were doing.
Well, of course.
Who lived in the neighborhood.
We need Patrick's expertise and his crew. Wayne County has totally washed their hands of it, as you know. It's their roads.
This is Plymouth, though, so they don't care.
It's township life, unfortunately. They're never going to repair the roads like that.
Do we
So.
have any?
Thank you very much.
Anybody
You
else?
want a resolution?
Hold on. Anybody else from the neighborhood? No? Okay. Any other comments or questions from the public? Then I am looking for a motion.
All right, here goes. I move to adopt Resolution 2019-9-24-89, authorizing the engineering firm of OHM Advisors to perform preliminary engineering under Step F of the Township Summary of Events, SAD Program for Road Improvements dated July 2019 for the proposed Andover Lake Subdivision SAD Road Improvements Project as submitted and described on the received petitions for a cost not to exceed $15,000.
Motion made by trustee Kermey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Kermey.
Yes.
Trustee Dempsey.
yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Good
Thank
luck,
you, gentlemen.
gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll meet again. Next item is the new item 3. This is the second quarter 2019 budget adjustments. And our old friend Sydney Kushner is with us tonight as well with her infamous cheat sheets, I believe. Yep. You know what mic to use? No.
Oh,
Forgot already.
I see it. Here it is.
Do you have any new things to pass out?
Here it is. In the packet you received over the weekend, had a revenue and expense schedule showing the proposed budget amendments needed. And we had to put that together in order to get it into the board packet. And then after that, we kind of sharpened our pencils a little bit and broke out a little bit more detail and description. The bottom number doesn't change, but some of the descriptions in the different departments have been expanded. So I just wanted to pass one out for the record.
And you will be changing, which page will it change?
So let me see in the.
All right, so the expenditures page.
And again, the bottom line, the bottom number doesn't change. It's just, if you care to study the detail a little bit more, it's a little bit more.
So 142, 287 stays the same?
Correct. And if you'll notice the ones Jerry is passing out, the yellow highlights are the things that I expanded on or changed.
Okay, could I just ask a question then about the summary page?
Sure.
Because these numbers are not the same. They're close, but they're not the same as shown on the detail page.
Correct.
So which is the right or the more accurate number?
The one on the summary page is the true difference in revenues and expenses per the general ledger, but we did not go into the small items and put them on the expenditure and revenue sheets because they were minor in nature, and so that's why it doesn't tie.
So there are a few pennies and dollars that could be on these sheets, but they're so small you didn't
Right.
add them.
Or they net out, right.
Okay, but we're dealing with these numbers are solid numbers on the summary.
Yes, they are, right out of the general ledger. I talked to Jerry about it on Friday, and I said we're going to, in order to get this in the packet, we're going to estimate and kind of do more of a summary, and he agreed to that. We can spend more time and tie it out to the dollar if we wanted to, but we ran out of time.
Okay, so where would you like to start?
So, if you look at the summary sheet,
At the top.
basically what that is doing is showing you what happened to our projections for revenue and expenditures since our first budget adjustments were done. So at that point, we were looking at expenses over revenue of $175,690. But based on the projections we did as of August 31st, we're now seeing that flip to revenues over expenditures of about $150,627. So the difference between that is, a significant increase. It's a $326,000 increase. So I'd like to explain, if you will, what is causing that to happen. And you'll notice that one of the nice things to see is that our revenues are projected to increase.
Excuse me, Bob, go to 102 over 148 if you can.
102 of 148, that's where I am.
Yeah, well, so he can get it up there.
Oh, sorry, Bob.
Sorry.
Okay. So you'll see the revenues are increasing $470,000, expenditures are increasing $143,000, and that's netting to an increase of our revenues over expenditures of about $326,000. So on the attachments that you have, page 103 and 104, summarize the revenue. And if you look at that, you're going to see a lot of this went up, that went down, that nets to almost zero, whatever. So basically, the increase in revenue comes from about five or six major things that I want to call your attention to. And then if you want to look at the detail of all that other stuff that goes in and out, that's fine too. But basically, we're still going gangbusters with building, and our building permits in total, we're estimating an additional $178,500. On the bottom of page 103, you'll see the building, electrical, plumbing, and heating permits at the bottom of the page. But the total of all of that is $178,500. There's an additional $100,000 hitting the 2019 budget. Remember the public safety grant we got for the Viper? We were supposed to get 218. We were supposed to get 100,000 in 2018 and 100,000 in 2019. We budgeted for the 100,000, but the 2018 amount is now coming in 2019. So that's an extra $100,000 for 2019 that wasn't budgeted for. Generally, we get reimbursement when our police officers work overtime to work events at CompuWare for graduations and the Concord d'Elegance and things like that, to the tune of about $50,000 that we just didn't put it, we just forgot to put it in the budget the last time. In prior years, it had been netted against expenses, but now we're showing it as its own revenue. We got insurance refunds. That's very difficult to budget. We try to just do like a 3-4 year average, but so we're getting an additional $57,000 insurance rebate. This year, for the first time, we're receiving payment in lieu for trees and sidewalks. Never had that before, and so we're budgeting about $40,000 for that. The proceeds from the 5 Mile sale are about $100,000 more than budgeted for.
Hold on that. Can you explain that a little bit?
The debt proceeds, I mean the proceeds from the 5 Mile sale?
Is this is what we haven't sold yet?
Yes.
Right.
Right, because we still owe money on it. We still owe the Bank of Ann Arbor for a loan that we took out. And so we continue to make those payments as this sale, and our plan is as soon as we get the check, right, we're going to pay off the loan and the rest of it goes in our pocket. Well, the longer this has taken, the more payments we've made on the loan, which means the less that we have to.
Well, at closing, you have to pay off in order to get clear title. I mean, whoever the buyer is, right? Is that land secured?
It's an unsecured loan.
Oh, it's unsecured.
Right.
All right. Yeah, I think.
But the point is, when we originally did the budget, we thought it was going to take place many, many, many months ago. So we continue to make payments, which is why the net now has been reduced.
And when you say put in our pocket, you mean to recoup all the expenses that were incurred, not profit.
That's a better way to look at it, correct.
Thank you, Mark. So that's the story on revenue, basically. Do you have any other questions on revenue?
On revenue.
Before we go to expense?
I think you can move on.
Okay. All right, expenses is an interesting story because even though the net increase is $146,000, we do have some bigger expenses, but we also have some lower expenses than we budgeted for. So they're going to net to about $146,000 increase. So if you look at your schedule and look at Department 290, which is on the top, mine is not numbered, so it would be on the top of page 106, the old 106.
It's actually.
Or the bottom.
First number would be 13967.
Right
the
here,
upper right.
actually.
17.
Yeah,
Okay, that's-
if you're
That's
going
our
to look
second
under
page.
Department 290,
Yeah. Okay.
is everybody there?
Yeah,
290, yeah.
right
okay.
here.
Yep.
The packet's not
Yeah,
in
right,
alignment.
okay.
Yeah, we're on it.
So basically, a lot of the increases and also a big decrease in expense took place in general government, which are generally difficult to budget for because a lot of things happen that are unforeseen. So one of the biggest things that the board has talked about is making an operating transfer to the golf course to enable them to start repaying the loan to the general fund. So that's an expenditure of $199,170. You'll recall at prior board meetings, we've talked about moving money to the capital improvement fund for police and fire future equipment. Well, now we're adding $25,000 for the building improvements and things that are going to have to start being replaced in Township Hall. So that's 25,000.
I would refer that, I would just rename that rather than improvements. That's really intended for repairs, unanticipated capital expenses that would be related to repairs, unforeseen.
Okay,
I mean,
repairs?
Improvements gives the impression that we're buying something new or
We don't
improved,
need, but
and we're not. Yeah, I mean, this is for stuff that
this
breaks,
is necessities.
so that we may be doing different stuff with that.
Okay,
Okay, since
line
we're talking about that, could we back up to the prior item?
sure.
Maybe the treasurer could repeat his explanation to me of that $199,000, because it's not technically, or I shouldn't say technically, it's not like in the real world, it's an expenditure, if I understand correctly.
Are you talking about
Well,
the transfer
government
to the golf
accounting
course
isn't
fund?
like real-world expenditure. So
There's accounting and
Trust me,
real
Cindy
world
can
are
do a better
different
job of
things,
this
so-
than me.
Okay, well, maybe
Mark and I had this discussion on Friday, so I think we both understand what each other is saying.
hoping to also.
Okay, so way back when, the general fund made a loan to the golf course, okay? At that point, cash just, we relieved cash, which is a balance sheet account, and we set up a loan receivable from the golf course. So because something just happened between two balance sheet accounts, you don't count that as revenue or expenditure, or it has no effect on fund balance whatsoever, okay? But now, the general fund is going to make an operating transfer from the general fund to the golf course so that they can start repaying that loan. That amount that we transfer out of the general fund is considered like an expenditure. Because it's leaving,
Like.
it's leaving.
Like an
Right.
expenditure.
So that's why in governmental accounting, we have.
Governmental accounting, okay.
Yes, it's not like regular accounting.
So it's kind of like funny money.
It makes it special.
Special money.
Yes.
Okay.
So does it,
not
does that
cash.
199, does that pop out somewhere else in the budget? Is that revenue? Is
No,
that-
no.
How
Because
does
when the
it-
money comes
Where
in.
does it reemerge?
Okay, so when the golf course pays the loan off, the balance sheet account, which is the receivable, gets credited, and then cash gets debited. So it's just a balance sheet account there, so it's never revenue to the general fund. It's only an expense because we're transferring money to them so that
But
they can
is
make
it-
the payment.
Isn't it revenue to the golf course fund,
It's
though?
revenue to the golf course, but not to the general fund. And then it'll
It's revenue to the golf course
Course
fund. I don't want to give the impression that it's going to
No.
the golf course or
No.
the operators or anything
Right.
like that.
The golf course is
we
going to
still
turn
have
around.
the money.
Yeah, and the golf
somewhere.
course is going to turn around and start paying off that loan. And what we're hoping is with the new golf course operators, they're going to generate excess cash or revenue or profit that we can then include in paying the loan
But
down.
that's
How much was the loan?
that's a separate issue.
Right.
How much was the loan? for the golf course?
900, with
It's
all the
it's
interest rolled into it.
199,000 for
Yep.
5 years.
Yep, for 5 years.
So I think you understand. So on the general fund side, we give them 199,000.
That's $1 million.
We reduce our receivable by 199,000. Now they have 199,000. They have 199,000 in cash, which they're going to around and pay back to us, which is reduces their payable by 199,000. So a couple balance sheet transactions. And the nice thing about this is that this will free up, because this is restricted on our general fund balance, so this will now free up $200,000.
That's where
almost like a-
that's where it pops
That's
up.
where
again.
it's got
It's
to pop
almost
up.
like the government version of a round-trip transfer, right?
Yes.
Well, that's a good way to look at it.
It's,
Right, that's, yeah. Okay, so Jack, does that clear up your issue, or do you have
Yes,
an
it's
additional
like,
question?
it's like something. It's like
It's
money.
like,
I know where it pops up now.
And,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
it's
it-
government.
when you look at our statement of activities and our, which is like our revenue and expense statement, you will always see a line under there called operating transfers out, right under the expenditures. So it's treated the same way.
Continue, please.
Okay, so that's our biggest increase in expenditure. Like I said, we're going to transfer $25,000 for major building repairs. Wayne County Assessing, we're increasing.
I think that's the next page.
Before you leave
no,
this
let me
page,
stay on the same page. I'm sorry. Okay, so we talked about the $199,000. We talked about the $25,000. The legal fees for planning are way up. We have tons of things going on with planning, and so we just need to increase the budget to cover it for the rest of the year. SDA Metro activities, that's Spalding D. Decker. They do reviews in regards to, this is in regards to wiring for fiber optic. A lot of the cable companies are starting to do that. So SDA has been...
Bob, she's at the top of the page there.
She's here.
Oh, no, she's down there.
General government.
Got it,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yep. So that's just increased activity with all the fiber optic wiring. Then also in that category, legal labor relations, on the other hand, are budgeted to be $70,000 less than anticipated. I think we have everything but fire and communications
We
finished.
still have some items outstanding.
Okay. So if you have any further questions on that.
So before you
Kurt's the
go
one
from
to
that
talk to.
page, do you want questions now for that page, or you want to wait?
If you're in that category, why not?
All right. The legal for planning,
Mm-hmm.
are the fees offsetting this increase? In other words, remember we had
Yeah.
one applicant who went round and round at least 3 times. So we're recovering fees is what I want to make sure.
For most of the legal, I believe we are. I'd have to look dollar for dollar and see how much we've recovered.
Cindy, does that include legal fees for 5 Mile and Ridge?
Yes.
Okay,
And we wouldn't recover those.
that is so you've lumped that into that legal
Yep.
planning? Okay,
Yep.
I will just tell you there has been considerable amount of time and money spent with all of the different parties to that transaction by Kevin, and he's done a very good job at it, but it has really, it's definitely run the number up. I would bet that that's probably,
Most of it.
5 and Ridge probably represents about $10,000 of that, if not more. It's going away soon, and we're going to get a nice check.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Could I,
Go
Go
I
ahead.
have one more on that
Go ahead.
page. Well, you want me, if it's a different category on the same page, you want to wait?
Well, let's finish this category
Okay,
first.
So, but
I'm done with that question. for
what's
that
the
category.
difference between what's been handed out and what's in the packet?
well, on this, nothing, other than,
The yellow highlighted items.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
well,
okay.
not exactly, because on that page on the screen, the last number is 30,000, and there's no explanation. But on what you handed out,
Yep.
there is
Oh,
an
yeah, that was
explanation.
another
Agreed
error
debt
we
service.
found after
Yeah.
we reviewed it.
So maybe you could just explain that for the public.
Yep, that was a, just a key punch entering error. The interest on the debt was supposed to be 70,000, and the 7 buttons is right on top of the 4 button. And 40,000 got put in there instead of 70. So this is just correction of an error.
Which debt? What debt service?
But the text is missing there.
Yeah.
That's why I put it on the new one.
Which debt?
I don't know. I don't have that.
Okay.
I don't know. I can get that for you.
Okay.
though.
Okay, can we move on?
Okay. All right.
Cindy, I'll let you guide us.
Okay. So, all right, that's the general government part, because like I said, that had very significant things in it. Okay, if you go back to the first page, 105 of 148. Department 209 is assessing. It's the third item down.
Okay, I see it.
Okay, Wayne County Assessing has been very busy with special appeals and some legal, mostly concerning the USA Hockey. There's some other things going on too, but that's the significant portion of it. So that's going to be an additional approximately $41,000 of additional expenses.
How many, Kurt, how many times have we been to the State Tax Commission for USA Hockey? Is it one, or are we on the appeal?
We've been living there, it seems, for the last year. About 20,000 of that 41,000 is the USA Hockey appeal. We have been in front of the Michigan Tax Tribunal, I'm not being facetious, for at least a year, with hearings, rehearings, appeals, motions, etc. And it has consumed half of that budget. There's a couple other businesses that have been doing some appeals as well with the MTA, but by far USA Hockey has been the biggest one.
What's the summary of what USA Hockey's doing?
Their legal theory is that they are a nonprofit providing a public service, which is the training of Olympic skaters and hockey players.
So they're arguing that the entire property should be tax exempt?
Yes, including the restaurant.
Including the restaurant.
That's a little unusual, the restaurant.
Indeed.
Who is their leadership? Where are they from?
They're based in Colorado. They are affiliated with the U.S. Olympic Committee, and they provide a training ground for skaters, but most importantly, I believe, hockey players who come here from around the world. They are billeted at homes in the Plymouth community. They play basically below minor league hockey, and then they get drafted into either college to play hockey, or they go back to their home countries, or they get drafted into minor league professional hockey.
So when do we expect the State Tax Tribunal to rule?
We don't know. I can check that for you, but I get periodic updates from Wayne County Assessing on that. But it's a law firm that is handling those appeals. It's not
Right.
WCA. It's billed through them, but it's
Who's the law firm?
I don't remember off the top
Laura
of my head.
Hallahan is the attorney. I think she's a sole practitioner, isn't she? Laura Hallahan?
No, she's with the
Or
firm.
she was the firm?
Yeah, I just don't know the name of the firm. It's a
Well, no,
super
but
specialized
But the
firm.
Holloran is our people. HOLL from Birmingham
No, this
or
is Laura.
West Bloomfield. That's us.
Yeah, but
But I wanted to know who USA Hockey's attorneys are.
I
Are
don't
they
know.
local attorneys, or
I
are they?
don't know. It's such a very specialized practice of law. Sometimes they bring in people from out of state, but I don't know who their attorneys are. They've got to have some familiarity, though, with Michigan law and practice and procedure before the MTA.
Okay, so when you look at all of those increases in expenditures that we just talked about, we also have then a big amount in healthcare, the healthcare fringe benefit line items, and that's spread across all departments, so that's why you can't zone in on the one number. But if you'll see in all the departments, we have a big credit to expense for fringe benefits, and we just initially over budgeted for fringe benefits based on higher increases than we incurred. So in this go-round, we're going to reduce fringe benefits across all the departments. So that's how we then net to the $146,000. Now, I know there's other things on this expense schedule that you're going to look at, but when you look at all of them, they're not by themselves causing the big increase or decreases. Like we have an equipment purchase, but that's offset by some equipment that we're not purchasing.
So except for building but how was it that the fringe benefits were so So what was the reason they were so
Under budgeted?
over budgeted?
Over budgeted. Okay. So it was a combination of two things. If you recall, last summer was our big transition with the new HR firm, and they do the schedules for us. And they budgeted the entire premium, and they didn't subtract out the 20% employee portion.
So they made a math or understanding error.
Right.
We also, I
And we
believe,
did-
anticipated a much higher
Right.
increase, and we were told by our
Right.
benefits consultants that we were going to see a major increase in the, was it
Fourth
the
quarter.
fourth quarter?
Yep.
We have not seen that level of increase.
Right.
So while this is good news, I'm expecting that we will see a larger increase
Increase
probably next
next
year
year.
rather
So-
than this year.
So that 12% they were talking about was not realized?
I don't believe it was as high as we thought.
We were
12%
told it
increase
was
is
going to
what
be
they think.
30% last year when we were doing the budget in July and August. So we had put in 30% there, and then
Plus, also, the employees voluntarily agreed to different various other fringe benefits within their health care package, and this was the first year that we had a full calendar year to absorb that, realize those savings.
so we had some big increases and a big decrease. So, and that gets us to our number. Again, back to the summer, if you want to look at that. Again, that's great news. It looks like, at least for now, revenues are going to exceed expenditures. But I also do break out all the restrictions on fund balance so that the board can understand it's not all spendable.
Okay, what does the term benefits express? What are they?
Oh, Benefits Express? That's the feature that the employees now use to sign up for their benefits through our...
It's a web
Yeah,
site.
it's an online portal
It's
that
an
you can
online
go in
portal.
and basically it's a do-it-yourself instead of, we used to fill out paper forms and
Right.
give them to the HR department and they used to distribute them. This is all automated, so you can go online. All that information is automatically then uploaded to Blue Cross, et cetera.
Okay,
So-
we just didn't have that in the budget.
Yeah,
okay.
correct.
Right.
It's nothing.
We didn't, we started getting bills for it in the middle of the year, and we weren't aware that that was going to happen, so.
So which one of these line items is the non-represented employees pay merit raises? Where are they in here?
Those were in the first quarter budget adjustments.
Okay. Could we have a list of what those were by amount and percent? Not tonight, but,
By amount and percent, yeah.
well,
we
per
can do
person.
that.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's doable.
George, whatever, chief of whatever,
Yeah, we
got
can do
this.
that.
So what this is saying, I think, is at the end of the year, basically 2.3 million is unrestricted. If you assume that that no revenue came in, we would have 2.3 million in cash that we could spend.
With the one caveat, with the issue Jack has always brought up and Mark Clinton has worked on, next year, we're going to, just to keep this in the back of your mind, commit another $358,000 to keep accumulating for the OPEB and pension.
Right.
So if you take that 2.3, and in reality, you're going to reduce that by another 358,000 when you do that commitment. You're going to be down to close to just 2 million.
Okay.
Good. Any other
Any
questions?
other questions?
So how many 2 million is how many days of cash?
Generally, they ask you to have about 3 months worth of expenses on hand. So at least about a quarter. And this, I believe, I computed to be 11%.
But then winter taxes will start rolling
Yeah.
in.
I mean, when you look at the fund balance before all these restrictions at 4.4 million, that's about 22%.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody in the public? All righty, I'm looking for a motion on this item.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Clerk?
I move to approve Resolution 2019-9-2488, authorizing the Township Clerk to make the above second quarter amendments to the 2019 general fund budget as shown in the attached schedules.
Motion's made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Dempsey.
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Motion carries.
Cindy, are you sticking around for the next part or no? She is? Okay, that's fine.
What's the?
All right, so the next item is draft 2020 budget discussion continues tonight with clerk, elections, and then any other general government questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. The clerk is up.
Can we hear you?
Is that coming across back there?
Okay.
Good. As you can see in the, if you move to the clerk's budget, one thing that I wanted to, of course, point out before we get to that one is that in the budget adjustments, you'll see that there was a savings of about $57,000, $58,000 in the clerk's budget from this current year. Part of that is we had scheduled a part-time assistant in the clerk's department that we did not hire, and of course with that comes some savings in FICA and other things like that. Additionally, we had some reduction in Cindy's pay and benefits. Even though we have some contract services, we're still in the black, I guess, if you want to call that. So once again, we did our best in the clerk's department to to be as frugal as we can and still get all of the work done. And of course, I want to thank everybody in my department for doing that. As you can see in our proposed budget here for the clerk's department, let me get my glasses on.
What am I looking at?
Yeah, what are we looking at here?
You're not looking at anything he passed out tonight.
This is for the one
the
we've
old
already had
budget
passed, this
from-
the version 4 that we had.
From
Last
September
week
17th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get to the
I didn't
page.
bring
Okay,
it.
I'm sorry. Page 4 of 10.
Hold on.
I didn't bring it. Did you bring yours?
No.
So when was September 17th?
Yes.
All right, let me go back and see if I can find it.
It's in my budget book.
And I'm sorry, we're assuming everybody was going to.
I found the police, but it's the big detail.
The
All right.
big detail.
That has 10 pages.
10 pages, right.
All right. And which page number of that 10?
Page 4 of 10 is the clerk's. And you can see, of course, there's no change in the elected officials. We haven't taken any raises, and and we're not again next year. But if you go down to the bottom part of the clerks, you see that our proposed total budget is going to be $626,517. Last year, our proposed budget was $673,110. So we're coming in just a little bit lower, even with the addition of that part-time person. Most of that person's wages are going to be it's going to be over on the election side. So when we get to the election side, you'll see that person because they'll be spending most of their time, if not 50% or more, there. And same thing with Paula's wages. So again, we're coming in at 626. Our projected for activity for this year is 615, 226, and we're proposing 626, 571.21. So this is the same number of people in the clerk's department as it was this year. Do I have any questions on any one of those items in the clerk's budget?
Jerry,
Probably are, but I don't know what to ask.
is there anything that you're adding because of increase due to absentee?
Absentee
Well, that's a
ballots?
separate budget.
That's in the elections.
That's in, okay, that's an election.
That's elections, right.
Okay. All right, cool.
And so some of the reduction you see
Actually, I
in
think
this,
mine is in the car.
Good,
I'm sorry.
please.
Mine's in the car. I'm going to go get it.
Well, here, I might have a spare. Just wait a minute.
You got a spare?
I'm sorry, Bob, I thought.
Here's,
Yeah.
We didn't bring it with us.
this looks, it was 9:30, what time was it? 3:38 PM, that's the version?
Yeah, 3:38 PM.
Okay, I want it back, please.
Yeah. Here, Gary, I can share with you.
Well, I guess,
Cool.
Mr. Clerk, just one question. So on 2019, there was $21,150 for an equipment purchase category, right? That's not in the 2020 budget. So that's a substantial part of the, not a whole, that's a substantial part of the reduction year to year. It's just that
That's
21,000.
part of the part of the reduction
Yeah.
is because, and we still have, are going to be purchasing some copying machines, but that's going to
Under elections?
no, it's for the clerks. The election equipment will show up on the election budget.
Where do the copy machines show up here?
That's part of that 19,000 in 2019 that we haven't quite
no.
spent yet.
Right, but I'm talking about 20. There's no copy machines in 20.
No, not in 20.
Okay.
So we still are going to purchase this year a copying machine.
And what is the expenditure? How much? 19,000, you said?
Well, it's going, well,
Are you leasing it or buying it?
well, that's what we're talking about. We've got 3 different companies coming in, and we're talking with them about what's going to be the best option of lease or purchase.
Seat of the pants, generally that kind of equipment, leasing is better, but don't know what's going on in the market.
We're going to see what the 3 different companies, and they're scheduled to be in here, I think, next week.
Bob, is it possible to bring that up on the screen?
It's not in the packet anymore.
Oh, it's not, no.
It
Okay.
wasn't in the study
Yeah,
session
right,
packet.
okay, I remember, thanks.
I'll look.
No, I doubt it.
Not back on 9.5 either?
I-
I was looking at.
I brought up
Could be a different version.
Oh,
No,
I
go
brought
back
up
to,
17,
go back to the regular meeting of 9:10.
9:10.
See if it's in there.
It might have been handed.
Because I think-
I think we handed it
No,
out.
I think we put it in the agenda
Yeah.
pack because it was already given to you guys earlier.
I think you're right. So
Let's just double check. It'll take us 2 seconds here.
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, no, I mean, oh,
let's see.
Hang on.
yeah, it's under item 7.
7,
Just check and see there, Bob. Item 7.
Yeah, I'm trying to
go all the way to the bottom.
trying to go page by, but for some reason it's not. Okay, whoa, let's go for a ride.
Slide that guy down.
I know, but it's not.
Can you just
There it
scroll all the
goes.
way down to the, there you go.
Here
No,
he
Keep going, keep
goes.
going.
See, I just needed
Okay,
a little
We
training.
did that, we did that.
It's a good thing we might have some new technology for the 2020 budget on Township Hall meeting.
You never know. Maybe. Oh, that was all that. Oh, I hope it was. There we go.
Go, hey.
So what's the date up in the upper left-hand corner?
9:05 at 3:38 PM.
That's the
Perfect.
same
that
hard
Right.
copy I
That's the
have.
version.
We'll give
Okay.
Chuck back his. You got it, we got it.
9/5?
Yeah.
There you go, Chuck. Take that one back. Yeah. You got it up there? Good. Yeah, we got it up.
3:30.
I was going to get.
Are you
checked.
returning this?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said you wanted it back. Cool. Nice job. Blow it up.
So if you like, we can move to the elections, which I think is something that is of everyone's interest unless they have.
Okay,
other
so hold on. Any other questions under Department 215 Clerk?
So this has been definitely an upward trend, 10% over 17.
Mhm.
You have a full-time finance director in there?
Yes, there is. And since 2017, we hired, as you recall, in our last year's budget was we created the full-time position for that Paula is in, and then the part-time position, which we have not filled.
So how many FTEs?
So
16, 17, 18, 19,
Okay,
20.
so, well, we're going to have a finance director. We've got the deputy clerk. We've got Paula, which is the elections clerk. We've got Diane, which is the records person. And we got myself. And then we have 3 part-time people in the accounting department, an accounts payable person.
So 6.5.
And then we have 2 accountants that are part-time.
7.5.
So is that,
7.5 FTEs.
but he doesn't count it, the elected
Yeah, I'm
official,
just
is-
letting you
they
know
don't, you don't count that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6.5.
But Jerry, prior to your election, how was that the finance department organized, and how was that budget broken out?
Yeah, well, as you recall, a lot of the work that was allegedly supposed to be done statutorily and by good accounting practices were not being handled in the accounting department. And so when we came to office, everyone on this board wanted to have changes, and we worked very hard with the Treasurer Clinton and the supervisor, myself, and you trustees also, in kind of organizing the clerk's department in a statutorily correct position for doing all the accounting work and following good accounting practices and procedures, so that all of the work that should be done for checks and balances between the treasurer and the clerk's department or the accounting department is done properly now. And so that wasn't done just by me. That was the cooperation of really everybody on this board, recognizing that we needed to clean up our financial house, and that took a couple of years to do. And really, it's a credit to the people who work in that department. And so,
But it also addressed an auditor's comment.
it also, the auditors have always said that this had to be done the right way.
Yeah.
And so all we did was move work over to that department and then staff as needed.
So Cindy, can I ask you a question? Prior to Jerry's arrival, how many people were in the area that would have been the finance or accounting function? 3.5?
There was
Deputy what?
no, he's talking about just accounting. There was you and one half-time person. Gail.
Okay, so prior to Jerry's election, there were 2 people in the accounting division of the clerk's office. 1.5. Okay.
Now there are how many?
There's
Accounting.
there's 1 full-time and 3 part-time.
2.5.
2.5.
2
So you added 1 head,
in total.
1 full-time.
1 full-time
Well,
equivalent.
and not entirely, because you're not paying benefits
No,
to those.
FTE, yeah.
But most importantly, we've brought us into compliance, statutory compliance, and in conformity with the recommendations from our auditors.
So you're saying that we were not in conformance because there wasn't enough people to do the work?
Well, they were switched. Some of the work was being done
Some of the work
in the
was-
treasurer's office.
Well,
Treasurer did the.
some of the work
clerk job.
wasn't being done because they were hiring Plant Moran to do the work. Remember, our Plant Moran costs were extremely high for those years, and that's because they had them doing work that should be traditionally done in-house.
So was there work that was moved from your organization, Mark, over to Jerry's?
Yes, we took Rachel, who was one of our cashiers, and moved her over. She was part-time in Treasury. We moved her over part-time.
So you only netted, so you reduced
Yeah, but you have
part-time?
you have
and they-
just
Right.
as many
So that's
cashiers.
not, to the township, that's not a net add.
That's
then.
not a net add, correct? Yeah.
But how many cashiers do you have now, and how many did you have when Rachel was there?
When Rachel came on board, we had two, let me back up. Before Rachel came on board, we had 2 full-time cashiers, and they did not want to be full-time. So when Rachel came on board, we brought 3 resources in to do the job of 2 full-time equivalents, and we found 2 things. Number one, they weren't very busy. We modified some procedures and really reduced the workload. So at the same time that we were struggling with resources in the accounting department, Rachel moved over there, and we reduced our cashiers to half-time. So we're basically we have 1 full-time equivalent now for the cashiers. But when I hired Rachel, to be very clear, I did it with the eye of eventually moving her over to the accounting department, because she was an assistant controller for the city of Midland. She's
Highly
a CPA. It was hiring her in the treasurers with the intention of eventually getting her into what she's better qualified to do, and she's doing a very good job over there.
So he found a real good person, all the time knowing that we're going to move her over into the proper department.
Good.
And now he has only 2 part-time people.
Correct.
Not counting the deputy.
Correct, yeah. And we basically have now 3 full-time equivalents in the treasurer's department.
So for not really a whole lot more expense, we got qualified people doing the work that we no longer are hiring Plant Moran to do.
And our Plant Moran fees have gone down considerably.
Yeah, they're probably a third of what they used.
So we've gone from like 125, 135 to like 45. So we're saving about $100,000 a year.
And we're in compliance.
And we're in compliance. And everybody's staying within their lanes according to state law, you know. Okay, then, hearing no other questions on the clerk line item there, then Jerry, you're going to take us into elections?
Anyone from the public?
Sure, anybody? No?
Okay. Okay, let's jump over to everyone's fun topic, elections. And it really is fun. I mean, this is one of the reasons I ran for clerk is I've always had this passion about how elections are part of our fundamental rights. And I felt very strongly about this. Those of you who know me for a very, very long time, I've had a long history of taking governments to task on election processes. Back in '97, when the
School board.
when the school district and the township of Plymouth and the township of Canton bought new voting equipment, which was touchscreen equipment, without any paper trails on them, I took them to task because of bad election results, and spent about $30,000 or $40,000 of my own money going all the way to the state Supreme Court in order to make sure that people's fundamental rights were protected. And ultimately, it came about that all of this equipment is no longer used in the state of Michigan. Subsequent to that, the legislature saw that the school districts should no longer be handling their own elections. They should be handled by the local clerks. And that was a change, along with making other changes in not allowing certain elections to be held in February. So all those kind of things were on my hot plate list when I started getting involved in elections over 20 years ago. And so this has always been kind of a passion of mine, and I'm very pleased that I'm able to take a part of this. As you know, there's been a lot of changes in the election process. We had an election last year. One of the 3 propositions on the ballot was 18-3, which is called Proposition 3, which had a number of major changes in the election process. And it is a change in the Constitution. This was a citizen-initiated change in the process. That means that the citizens signed petitions, went to the state elections commissions, got the language approved, and so it was put on as a ballot initiative. And it required 315,000 signatures was the requirement that they had to meet. They turned in over 433,000 signatures. So you could see that the public...
That's this handout you've given us?
That's exactly what I'm showing on this particular handout here. That's the first circle you see in the top left-hand corner. And then so there was election on these major changes. Some of those changes are straight ticket voting, no reason absentee ballots, automatic registration at Secretary of State. If someone goes to the Secretary of State and changes their address, adds a motorcycle endorsement, adds a CDL endorsement, or anything that touches and concerns licensing, they're automatically registered to vote. And if they don't want to be registered to vote, they have to opt out. So they're automatically registered. So this also allows people to vote and register to vote up until the last second on the day of election. And so there's a lot of major changes in the election process. And 66% of the people in the state of Michigan voted in favor of that. In the city, in the township of Plymouth, in the lower right-hand corner, 63% of the people voted for this proposition in the township of Plymouth. That's a significant number. The circle on the bottom left is just by way of example. 57% of the people in the township voted for our millage.
You mean bottom right?
Bottom left. 57% of the people, no, bottom right, sorry. 57% of the people voted for our millage, which we taxed the people $2.1 million for public safety issues, anything that touches and concerns the public safety. That's OPEB, pensions, new fire trucks, even some people on the board and the chief said even specifically they wanted a ladder truck. So here you had 57% of the people who authorized the expenditure of this money. When you look at the election proposition, 63%. So this is a mandate by the people of the state of Michigan and specifically this community. And it was kind of like that across the whole board. Matter of fact, in Wayne County, 73%, I think, voted in favor of this in Wayne County. So this is a public-initiated mandate for these changes. That means the public wants these things to occur. And guess what? All of these things cost more money. And so this is not really an unfunded mandate because the public voted for it knowing that they were going to have to expend existing tax money to do this. So they're expecting their state and their communities to expend existing tax money, because no tax money followed this, in order to effectuate these changes in the election. As just an example of why I think we're going to need this much money, if not more, quite frankly, is what's going on inside of this election process. So you're going to have more people being registered to vote than ever voted before, because it's going to be done automatically. You're going to have more people choosing to vote in each one of the elections because of the ease of voting. So some people who may stay home normally are going to say, it's easy. I just drop it in the mail and I get a ballot. Isn't that great? So what all of this does, and it's for 3 elections, what this does is that it's going to increase the turnout. And so for each one of the elections, you're going to have the ability for people to come into the township hall at 7:59 p.m. and say, I want to vote. And I got to have people here to make sure that they're properly registered, issue them a ballot. They get to vote the ballot here. And so there's a lot of requirements that are being placed on the clerk's departments in order to pull this off. Just as a kind of aside, the multicolored chart you see here, this was a chart given by the state of Michigan that showed the last 14 days of this past primary, the makeup of the voters that came in to register in the last 14 days. Those last 14 days, they have to come into the clerk's office and register to vote. And here's the makeup of those people.
Did you say they actually had to walk in? They didn't do it at Secretary of State?
No, they come in here. These are people who registered to vote in the last 14 days. They could have done it, but they may or may not show up on the charts. They have to have. We hope that the.
So what do you think this is? This is both Secretary of State and walk-ins?
And walk-ins.
Yeah. At the
so,
clerk.
But we know why the 18, 19, and 20-year-olds came.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But now they're registered.
Now they're registered. So
you have 54%
the
under 29.
So under 20, and look at under
More than
30.
half.
I mean, you even have people who are 60 to 69 coming in to register to vote. And of this chart, 78% of these people were brand new voters.
Well,
the other 22% were, I just moved to a different location.
But that's kind of what my point is, that you had this big spike of new registrations, but you're not going to have another new spike because everybody's registered.
No. This was only in cities. This is not townships.
Oh, so this is not Plymouth Township.
No. This is
cities statewide.
This is cities statewide. And so that's just the makeup of the people that are coming in to vote. The eldest person that voted, registered to vote in the state of Michigan, was 85 years old.
So are you telling me that these were new registrations?
These are new people. So what I'm saying is this law is going to drive more people to vote, people who traditionally don't vote because they don't want to bother doing it. And that happens. I mean, here you can see people 60 to 69 years old. 8% of the people that came in those last 14 days were that old. They're brand new voters. And so what this law is going to do is increase the number of voters. Additionally, it's going to be an increase in absentee participation. Some communities in this last primary election had up to 78% of the electors that came in were voting absentee.
That was in August 2019?
That was August 2019. In the city of Livonia, they were up over 16% in their election for, and I used because it was a contested mayoral race in a primary, and they were up 16% in a primary. And everyone is expecting a large influx of voters. So it's because it's easier to vote, you're going to have more people voting. Additionally, I don't have to tell you this, board members.
But you will.
Right? I don't have to, but I'm going to. I don't have to tell you that, the rancor that is out there politically is off the charts. You have such caustic activity going out there in the social media and the media, the political parties, the candidates.
And that's just up here on the board.
That's just up here on the board. And you ought to see what the real politicians are doing. You recall the massive FOIA that I got last year, where they asked for all kinds of information.
$35,000 to do the job.
So we're still having to hang on to that stuff because the state says if they if they come and want the stuff, we got to hang on to it and produce it for them.
Every clerk in Michigan
Has
got that FOIA request.
Got that FOIA.
And
So
came-
is that 35,000 in your budget?
No, because until they ask for it, I'm not going to say that I'm going to do it. I just have to be ready to do it.
So let me kind of cut to the chase. So you're arguing that more people are going to register because it's easier, and they can do last-minute registrations. There would be more people voting for a variety of reasons. I mean, I think in 18 it was a reason, a different reason.
Yeah.
But how have you modeled, what assumptions did you make in terms of the number of people that would come in, the demand capacity, how do you model your demand capacity to show that in order to, I'm going to assume that we're going to have X number of people and we're going to need Y to be able to cover those numbers of people?
Sure. And very good questions. What we're assuming is that we're going to have somewhere between 60 to 70 some percent are going to be AVs, and I think it's going to go up in each election. I think there's always going to be some people who say, well, I'm going to make sure my vote counts. I'm going to go to the polling place. I'm one of those kind of people. I want to watch my ballot go in the machine.
But they still have to apply to get an AV.
Yes, they do, but it's no reason now.
Right.
Before you had to be over 60 or claim,
All you had to do is check you were going to be out of town.
Yeah, but people didn't because
They weren't going to
they didn't want to lie. And so
Not that I would encourage anyone to lie in an election. Just, let's clear that.
And so when you see our neighbor next door, Livonia, which is a good example. I mean, you're talking about
78%.
kind of like a similar kind of community. Just in their primary, they had a 16% uptick in AVs, and this is not the big deal yet.
60%?
16%
16%.
in AVs. Now remember, AVs cost more money. You've got to send, you got to
There's
mail
many
out the
hands that touch it.
There's numerous times that information is touched. So I have to have more people in the back room processing ballots. So every time someone calls for one, I have to mail them a request form. It comes back to me. I have to check the signature against the qualified voter list to make sure that it's right. If it's not, then I send them a letter or an email or a phone call, whatever information I have on them, because I'm required to do that. Okay? So if something doesn't match, then I have to find out why and encourage them to come in and sign a new card so that we have the most up-to-date signature. You have some people like, they may develop Parkinson's or something. And I went to numerous places where I've went and got other signatures on it to make it match so we'd have that. So you're going to have a lot more touches in the back room. You're going to have a lot more cost for mail. You're going to have a lot more cost. All the material has changed. All the things that I have.
All the envelopes.
All the envelopes.
All the sub-envelopes.
All the sub-envelopes. All the secrecy sleeves.
So it's a fourfold. So how much do they get paid?
Pardon?
How much do they get
Well,
paid?
that's part of the process, and that's what I'm asking for is some increase. Is some increase in the pay for the people that are doing this work.
I would like to just add another wrinkle to this whole thing, and we saw it last year for the first time, where we had political candidates, political parties, special interest groups, organizations, who knows who funded them, where they were sending out postcards to individuals saying, are you registered to vote? Will you commit to candidate X or Y? Fill out this form and get your absentee ballot. And Jerry, you were getting people who were confused because they thought that they weren't voting absentee, or then they thought they were on the list and they weren't.
Yeah,
Some people were.
People were getting things from the political parties that looked like it came from the government, meaning us. And so they're calling and saying, wait a minute, I already turned my ballot in. Didn't you get my ballot? How come I'm getting this? And all of that takes time and effort away from whatever else you're doing and confuses the people. Or they come in and say, I just got this. I already turned my request in. And
But I guess just to follow up Trustee Dorshevitz, I think what I heard was kind of a quantification question.
Sure.
Jerry,
How-
can I help with that a little
Sure.
bit? Okay. I spent a lot of time this afternoon with Sandy and with Jerry trying to quantify this. Would you mind, Bob, just that the salary election workers line, would you mind highlighting that?
Highlight that one.
I don't know if you
$2,000
can.
right there.
I can't with
Okay,
this,
all
the
right.
way this
The
is-
182?
We'll just
Yeah.
point to it then.
Yeah,
Oh, I got my pointer. Hold on.
That guy, you can't
right
drag
here.
it, huh?
Gosh, I spent a lot of money on this.
Can you drag that?
There you go, right there.
Thank you. So those are the people that Jerry wants to hire on a temporary basis to do two things. Number one, to process all of the absentee ballots for the 6 weeks or X number of weeks coming up to an election. And then that's the people that are going to be in the precincts and in the absentee precincts the day of the election. You can see that's gone up significantly from 2018.
Fourfold, yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. It's now up to
Which was
180.
my big red flag, and that's why I spent a lot of time with Jerry and Sandy today. Here's the metrics. When you look at 2018, there were roughly 40% of the ballots that were cast were absentee ballots. And if you look at the hours that all of those people, let's break this into two components. Let's talk about the absentee ballots. 40% of them were absentee. If you look at all the hours that those people worked during 2018, they were able to process 4.2 ballots per hour. Now that's from the start to the finish, right? So that they have to touch that multiple times, the application, the mailing,
No, that's what I was
receiving,
looking for. Yeah.
right? So all is said and done, 4.2 applications per hour. So keep that one in mind.
Applications are actually voted
Complete.
ballots.
The absentee ballots, right? Yeah.
When you say beginning, you mean the application?
To the
The factory could make
Counted.
4.2 votes per hour from end to end.
Yes.
That's really slow.
Because it gets touched numerous times.
Yeah, that's end to end. That's
Right.
the application, mailing, receiving, logging,
Yeah.
scanning, counting, the whole 9 yards.
Correct, 4.2 per hour. So now we assume that in 2020, there's going to be a slight uptick there's going to be one more election in 2018, obviously. I'm sorry, 2020. So we compared that to 2016, and we said, okay, we're going to go from 35,500 voters to 36,000 voters for all three elections. Okay, in 2016, there were 35,500. We estimated that there will be 36,000 voters in 2020. And then we flipped the number. We said there's not going to be 40% absentee, there's going to be 60% absentee.
So why 36,000? You said 3 elections.
In 2016, with 3 elections, there were 35,500 votes cast across those 3 elections.
Was there were 3?
You had a primary, presidential primary.
Presidential primary.
Oh, presidential primary.
Yeah. And so slight uptick in the total number, but the big assumption is that the absentees are going to go from 40 to 60, okay? So that means that there's going to be 21,600 absentee ballots that have to be touched. You use that same 4.2, and you figure you've got about 5,200 man-hours that are needed to process the absentee ballots. And then Jerry's recommending that those people go from $14 an hour to $18 an hour. Now, having said all that, I think we agreed that that number can be reduced by $25,000.
About 20.
Okay.
So the number you use is
We can't hear
21,000 incremental ballots or total?
21,600 total absentee ballots.
Yes.
Per year for 2020?
For 2020, across all 3 elections.
Divided by 4.2 is
But hold on a
5,200
second.
man-hours.
Yes.
I thought we had 35,000 in 2018.
That's what I was asking.
35,000
For that
total
analysis.
ballots.
Total.
In polls and
So
polls and absentee.
4.2 hours per ballot, and we have 21,600 ballots?
Correct.
Okay.
But you
And
must have,
then how much per hour?
$18 an hour.
but that's $18 an hour times 5,200 hours of absentee work
Right.
is 93,600.
Correct.
Who's got the calculator?
And then remember, we still have to man all of the precincts. We're not relieved of that.
Well, wait.
You're going to have less.
Why all of the precincts? Why,
You're
if you're
mandated.
We're-
Because we don't know.
we're mandated to have 12?
We're mandated, there's a
I'm just
maximum
asking.
number. There's a
2,500,
maximum
isn't
number
it?
that you can have in each precinct. That's a
20
state, that's a state
Isn't
mandate.
it 2,500 registered voters per precinct?
So that's a
You have-
yes.
Yeah, we have a little over
29?
Yeah, that's the maximum you
So
can have.
I'd like to make an observation on yes or no questions. It'd be nice to have a yes or a no,
Okay.
and then an explanation.
Okay, sure.
So, yes, we're mandated to have 12 precincts.
We're mandated to have those precincts as it sits right now. Maybe after this whole election cycle, they may change that. But right now, we're mandated.
We don't know what that absentee number is going to be.
Yeah.
We don't know how many are going to be at the polls.
Because they request it. So they take total number of, they don't care
Who-
how
who-
they vote,
Can you stop and who's they?
the state.
State.
The state doesn't care how they
mandate,
vote.
yeah.
It's per precinct, you can only have a maximum of about 2,900 people.
But we could reduce the number of precincts, but it's probably not a good time now because it's not
Exactly.
enough time to do the
Well, you
work.
have to
Yeah.
have a good year lead time to do that.
Okay.
No, we did it once before.
I know you did. You went from 17 to 12.
Okay. I'm sorry. I interrupted you when you were saying 12 precincts because I didn't understand why
6
we had to
years,
have
maybe.
12. So I get that now.
We
Yeah.
had 17.
So we still have to man all those as if everyone's going to show up there because we really don't know. Although we know already are seeing, and we saw a little bit of that in the last election, the gubernatorial election. Remember, we had more absentee ballots posted for the gubernatorial election than we did for the presidential election.
We
And
were
that-
actually encouraging people to vote absentee
Well,
because
yeah.
we were expecting a huge turnout at the polls.
And so were
We got
so-
both,
yeah, and
basically.
We got both, and so are the parties. The parties are doing what I call scavenging for voters, and
It's a job.
that's what that FOIA was about. They wanted to get information so they could contact those people. The latest one we got, which comes from the same law firm that helped Hillary Clinton with her
Well, that-
Fusion GPS?
Yeah.
What is it? What is
Yeah,
it?
that's interesting, but
Yeah.
but now we've talked about the absentee. We've established you got to have 12 precincts.
Yeah.
How many workers do you have to have, and how much do you have to pay them, and how
Right.
much does that total?
And again, we have to increase the pay for last election. The last
But my question was, how many workers?
you're going to need at least 7 workers in a precinct.
Okay, that's
So you have
84 workers.
You have an intake worker. You have someone doing the poll book. You have someone handing out ballots.
84.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah. So you have to have those people.
And how many
in it.
hours do they work?
Well, they're going to work 15 to 20 hours.
All of them? Each of them?
Each of them, and then you have to train them ahead of time. So you're going to have probably, anywhere between 6 to 8 hours worth of training for those people.
Did you have training in that budget from before?
Yeah.
Because I know people got paid separately for training,
Yeah, it's a
Last-
separate number, right.
so your
It's
number
in-
may be low.
It may be
it's
low.
in there. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think I've always voted at the polls, maybe once or twice absentee,
Yeah.
but my experience at the polls is that it's never, if there's a line, it's never because of a shortage of workers. It's because the bottleneck comes at the end.
Right.
They can only scan so many
One at a
ballots at
time.
once.
Well, and one of the
But
things.
it's never a shortage of workers.
Well, we had a shortage of workers. We averaged about 6 people in our precincts last time, simply because we couldn't get enough people. And we had only 3 counting boards in the gubernatorial election, and we needed more, but we couldn't find qualified people to do that. Now, we had more people apply, but they weren't qualified. They couldn't,
What makes them qualified?
well, they couldn't do the work without me saying too much more. And so in this budget is just increase in pay for those people, because we're going to have to recruit people and hopefully retain them for 3 elections.
Well, and one of the major things, Bob, is Jack and I, as election commissioners last time, we did a debrief of last election. We talked to poll workers, we talked to anybody who voted, and there were some people that were unqualified to be poll workers, right? Because they've done it for 25 years. I sat there every single day, and basically they argued with some of the electorate, and there were issues. And we want to attract, we told them basically don't come back, and we want to attract people. If you look today, you can go in any single place online that has the elections coming up next year. They're all advertising for poll workers already.
Yeah, or you can temp them or something, I don't know.
Yeah, that's an idea too.
You know,
So
because
what I've been doing for
almost
that, Bob,
ideally,
is
people
I've
that
been
don't
going
live in the
around
town
the
without it.
businesses. I've been personally going around the businesses like banks, title companies, mortgage companies, and saying, hey, you work in this community. Can I have one of your persons on election day to come in and run the computers? Because that's a technical thing, and these people are used to very detailed work. So I'm getting some good positive response, but you still have to pay people. And remember, we've got 100% employment out there. And so we have
That's an interesting idea.
so we have to attract better qualified people to do this stuff, especially with the changes in the laws that are incumbent upon us to know and have people exercise their fund.
And it's new technology.
Jerry, I would also encourage you, Livonia is a great test case for all of us right now. They've got a very competitive election for mayor, for city council. And I think that we have a good relationship with them.
Absolutely.
Find out what they're doing to attract and retain people. Are they paying more?
Yes.
Are they training them differently? And what are they doing for recruitment? Because I think we've got to get into the schools. We got to get into Schoolcraft College.
College, yes. The high schools, you can only use those young people for only a part of a day.
Well, like 18. I'm thinking 18 and up.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at 16-year-olds.
Yeah. Now you can
Although
use,
they're probably more computer literate than all of us put together.
You can use them, but you can't use them for a whole election day. And that would mean you'd have to have shifts, and that's just not a good thing to do, to have shifts come in the different precincts.
Yep.
And so we're going to have problems with the volume of the AVs coming in. There's already discussion of, are we going to be allowed to start counting the ballots ahead of time?
Right.
Chad,
So-
you're retired, man. You could do this.
I'm not volunteering, sorry. I already served on the Elections
No.
Commission.
What we're going to do is we're going to draft you.
No, I refuse.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bill Heitman and I spent 12 hours last election doing, because of all the problems we had, we were doing a lot of this stuff
Yes.
to make sure everything was on the up and up.
Yeah.
That man worked his butt off. No relation.
But you got his pay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a
So-
heck of a job.
Conspiracy.
Back to the numbers.
Yes.
The treasurer suggested there might be a $25,000 slice out of that.
Yes.
You've identified the portion that's AV related.
Yes.
I haven't really heard you compute the numbers for us on the poll workers
Now, on the
part.
poll workers.
So
sure.
my question would be, could you give us that breakdown
Yes. So
in writing, in a chart?
okay, here's what we have devised is, of those like 7 people, we're going to have a structure where the less detailed type work, those people can be moderately technical in their abilities, and they would be paid a little bit less. The person who hands out the card, checks their driver's license. But the people who are the running the computer, checking the poll book, have to be super literate in that. So that person's going to be paid more.
Especially when they're trying to find my name.
If I try to find, they just look for it phonetically, just like on the sign. And then your chairperson and your vice chair, these people all have to be technically savvy and really up on the election law. So those people will be paid more. And the other people who are taking the tab off at the election or handing the ballot once the person in the computer says, okay, give this person ballot number so-and-so, and they hand them the ballot, putting it in the secrecy sleeve. Those are lower tech jobs. And so they would just be paid moderately more than they are now, maybe $10 or $15 a day. and the other ones are going to be paid more because of the technical skills we need to have to recruit those people.
Jerry, I have a question on getting back to the chart here. In 2018, you have part-time at 55,297. That number goes down dramatically now to 7,500. Does that reflect a full-time, a part-time employee, or
Yes.
who or what was that?
See, now that person, remember, we didn't hire the part-time person?
Paula?
No.
It was another person?
Well, part of the other one was Paula. We moved part of Paula's pay into elections from the clerk's department, because that's where it belonged. She was doing election work, okay?
Didn't she also start out as part-time, and
And she
then you
started out
moved her to
part-time.
full-time?
And moved full-time. So the part-time person is that in my clerk's department, remember, I didn't hire that part-time person, but I'm hiring that person now. So I'm saying at least 50% of that person's time is going to be strictly election stuff, and the other is going to be other clerk duties. So I'm just kind of guessing that that's what's going to be. It could end up she's spending majority of her time doing. So this is just an estimate of that. And then like 3/4 of Paula's time is going to be elections.
So to Jack's point, I'd love to see this all kind of modeled out in a spreadsheet.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
help convince
I have a-
me.
Yeah.
But
we
the
get to
important,
that
the
now.
important, the important thing to take away from all of this, gentlemen, is that this was a public mandated change. This was not, hey, I think I've got a better idea. This is mandated by the public. And when we had 57% of the people give us $2.1 million, we went through that like a hot knife through butter and had no problem doing it. And this is mandated by the public. And so you have to fund it so it goes off without a hitch. And to my other point, you're going to have scrutiny on Michigan. Remember in the last presidential election, that the difference was 10,000 votes. So they're going to be all over Michigan. That's what this last FOIA was for. This is that Fusion GPS law firm sent us an extensive FOIA. They want to know.
What is Fusion GPS?
You remember the Russian thing with Trump?
The nuclear
I don't,
sale and all that.
I don't watch most
So
of that.
I think the point,
What I'm saying is they're out looking for any opportunity to find information on voters, because they're going to contact them and then encourage them to come to vote. So you're going to have more voters, and you're going to have more voters voting absentee, because all these people are encouraging them to do that.
Well,
the data mining that's going to go
It's
on
what's
next
going on.
year is going to be incredible. You will never see anything like it. It's never happened before. There's going to be ballot harvesting. You saw that in California. You saw that in North Carolina. It was illegal there, but it was okay in California.
The
What does that-
absentee ballot
What
makes
does that
it
mean,
more,
ballot harvest?
more vulnerable.
The parties go out and with ballots, and
Oh.
basically you fill them out at home, and then they bring them back for
Hey,
you.
let me go
But
pick
that's
up.
not legal.
Once they know that you're getting
You're right.
a ballot,
We don't know if I don't know if it's going to be legal or not yet in Michigan under the new.
they go out, they can get a list of who's requested an absentee ballot, and they're going to their house and say, hey, let me help you with that. They see that you're a very senior person, and they're going, let me help you out. I'll take that in for you. And
The other thing too is that
Illegal.
you're going to have challenges on all sides with respect to residency, with respect to citizenship, with respect to any other way that they can knock people off the ballot. And when you have absentee voting right up until the last day and registration up until the last day, you're going to have provisional ballots cast, and if you have any election that's going to be a difference, one guy wins by 100 votes or even 500 votes, you're going to have lawyers descending on all of these communities.
well, and the increased scrutiny on every clerk's office is going to be even more than,
Oh, yeah.
so you're going
we see
to
it with
have
Southfield
have
already.
press scrutiny, because Michigan is a bullseye state. They want to flip it from red to blue, or keep it red, okay? And remember, there's going to be voting going on right here in the clerk's office. When they come in that last day, they're going to be voting right there. That means there's going to be challengers out in the lobby here, challenging these people, and we have to have people ready, willing, and able to handle all of that stuff. Matter of fact, I want to tell you, by the time we get to the general election, we may have to close Township Hall, the workers down, because we're going to have such an influx of people in the lobby. It may be required.
It's going to be a high turnout.
Now, the other good news here, I think, is, Jerry, is the presidential primary. That is going to be kind of a dry run for us.
When is that?
March
Yeah,
10th.
March 10th. Now, people are saying that, but remember, the larger number of people in the field that are left in the Democrat primary is going to drive the numbers up. And plus, they're going to drive the numbers up because they want to get those people, they want to capture them for the fall election. So you're going to have recruiting going out for votes. And if you have more than 2 people left in the primary, and I think you're going to.
Well, plus you'll have Republicans voting to...
Yeah, yes, you do, yeah. But
You will also probably have a school millage or school
There's gonna be a
sinking
school.
fund or some school
Yeah.
financial thing is almost certainly going to be on the March 10th ballot.
they have already, no,
I thought school could only be August or November now.
The attorneys for the school districts and cities are telling their clients that they can put it on the March 10th ballot.
Just
We're
back to
expecting
the old way,
we're
when people
expecting a
are not
school bill.
around, they're in Florida, whatever.
we're expecting a school millage on the 10th.
That doesn't surprise
And that's going to drive the number up.
So for that election, how many absentee ballots do you think are going to be cast?
Boy, I wish I knew, but I'm going to estimate that you're going to have well over 10,000
Okay.
ballots.
So one of the things
10,000 absent ballots
Yeah.
for March 10th?
Yep. Yeah.
so
Really?
Yeah. They're driving the
Doesn't seem
numbers up.
plausible.
so what,
Oh, that's too high. How many registered voters do we have? 20?
We have about 23,000.
23?
It's,
10
Jerry, in
would be-
my opinion, that sounds, I mean, if history repeats itself, it sounds a little high. In the 2016 presidential primary, there was 10,500 votes cast.
I understand that.
Votes cast.
Votes
Now,
cast.
what was AV?
And the AV was 39%, about 40% of that. So
Yeah.
call it
But there were
a
2
little over
primaries.
4,000.
They were on the same,
Right.
they had the same day, yeah.
Yeah, they were, but I mean, that's
you're
why there were 10,000, because you had people coming to vote for their favorite from their own, from the their
We
own
see-
party.
So you're going to have people crossing over
To mess with it, I
to
know.
cause trouble.
Okay,
I know.
You're going to have that same scenario that you had in 2016, unless some states have abolished, because remember, presidential primaries are for the parties, they're not for the state.
Yeah.
Right,
So the parties have the right to abolish their primary, and some of them have done that already.
yeah.
I don't know if Michigan is going
No.
to join that,
Yeah,
So-
not yet.
but you're still going to have a very crowded field on the Democrat side.
but the Democrats typically, they don't use a primary. They use a caucus.
No,
Not
they're
in
they're
Michigan.
using a primary in 2020, and
Yeah.
they did
So
it in
they've made that
2016.
decision already.
Yeah, the legislature did.
Okay,
so
so you're
because you're going to have a lot of absentee votes on March 10th,
Yes,
2.5 times normal.
I think
So,
so because,
can I ask a question?
sure,
How many high-speed absentee voting machines do you need by March 10th?
2.
Why 2?
I've got one that we bought this year.
I
And
don't
it-
see that in there. I see that
Last year,
2019 activity through 8/31/19 for equipment purchase, there's nothing there.
in the
The 35,350?
Correct.
The
35,
projected
350.
activity.
You
There's one
authorized
machine
that.
in the 2019 and one
He
in
said he'd already
2020.
purchased it.
Activity. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's being purchased this year.
Being purchased.
You've
You're
authorized
going
that
to
payment.
purchase
Yeah,
it.
going to purchase it.
That's
No,
not the same
we've
as
already-
I have already purchased it.
No, we've already put the order in. that it
You've
has-
already ordered it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's
And
already
then you're going to order another one under this
Order another
budget.
one.
You're going to have 2
2 high-speed equipment.
by March 10th.
Yes,
Because that was one of the issues that
right.
Trustee Heitman and I identified in our memo for this
Right.
board.
So what happens if one goes down?
Well, then we have a problem. This is what
So
happened. This is
you
what happened.
calculated the volume, you need 2,
Yeah.
But we don't have a backup in case one goes
Well,
down.
here's
We
the
went to the
interesting.
city of Northville last time,
Here-
and
here's-
got one from them.
Here's the history of what happened there. Northville, when these new equipment came out, bought a high-speed reader, but they bought the smaller version, not the $35,000 one, but the $12,000 one. It didn't work out for them. So the next year they bought a $35,000 high-speed equipment. And this was it for the presidential last year. Well, they had just won, and they had trouble with it. They got through the election, but they had trouble with it. So this year they bought another one. So they have two high-speed equipment, and they are the same size as we are, and they think that will work.
How many ballot, in the memo you guys put together was really good.
Yeah.
How many, what's the processing rate of the high speed?
Well, it could take it can read like 25 a minute, where the other one was doing 3.
25 a minute, so that's 1,500 an hour.
And remember, we don't start running them through the machine until we get the full precinct done.
Everything done.
So we have the people and one of the reasons we've moved precinct 3, which you voted right here in this room, we've moved it over to Allen School where it used to be. And this is going to be where we're going to be processing AV ballots, because there's going to be so many, and we're going to have plenty of room. And then we're going to have the machines up here. And then so we have to process. We're going to need 4 to 6 what we call counting boards. So with 6 counting boards, you're going to have 2 precincts per counting board. When if there's 4, then you're going to have 3 precincts per counting board.
It was so slow last time, we sent counting board people home because there wasn't any work for them.
Yeah.
And we just basically said, sorry, the machine is too slow. Why don't you just go home?
Do we still have the slow ones too?
Yeah, we still have those. Now we're taking. Also, we'll have to make a change in this budget a little bit, a few $1,000s, is because we're trading in 2 of the extra machines that we had bought. We bought 20 of them.
Yeah.
So we're trading 2 of those in, and they're going to give us a discount on this next $35,000 thing. So that'll show up in the rest of the budget also.
I'm surprised the vendor didn't, before the election, say, guys, this isn't going to handle your volume. A good partner would have.
I wish they would have. And you have to realize that, boy, I tell you, the salesman for Dominion must be a fantastic salesman, because of the 83 counties, 63 counties bought the same machine.
And there's only one supplier of this?
Dominion, no, there's really about 3 suppliers.
3 resellers?
Yeah.
One manufacturer?
Yeah, and so,
That's the difference.
and so this machine that we have is in 63 of the counties. The other 20 counties have 2 other different type machines.
Well, that's really an irrelevant point. The point is that Wayne County dictated this machine.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the other 82 counties said.
No, but what I'm saying is,
It's interesting, and it's a good
But the
story.
manufacturer makes a high speed and a low speed.
Yeah.
And what I'm asking is, there's 3 different vendors you could buy from, right?
actually, the high-speed counter is a Canon.
Oh, it's
speeder.
a different brand.
Yeah, it's a brand. Yeah, it's a Canon that's marketed by Dominion. Dominion is the distributor. Thank you. Yeah.
Now, Bob?
Not 100%, but that's okay. I get it. It's a different OEM, but the reason I was asking is just because, if we had a vendor that didn't do a good job for us the last time, why are we buying another machine from them?
Well, they apologized.
Because they're the ones who are going to service.
They came to one of our meetings and they said, we're sorry.
Oh, well then, that's okay.
They are the
She was very
person.
sincere.
They are the person who services the Wayne County. So we're kind of locked into that, and it's not that I couldn't go to Canon and buy this separately for a little less, but then Dominion won't service it.
So I'm hoping Wayne County is not on the national news. The focus is some slow reporting in pivotal presidential election or something.
Well, I think you may see the legislature making changes by the time the December.
99.99% of the vote is in, except for Plymouth Township, Michigan.
And so they may make changes. And any changes they make, if they make changes to where people can start processing the ballots ahead of time, well, that just means I'm going to.
Bad idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so and you'll have to sequester those people.
Bad idea. Bad idea.
So they're expecting that just the reporting's just going to take longer.
Get back to the calculation for the 21,600 ballots, $18 an hour. I calculate that that's going to cost $93,000. Is that about right?
That is for the pre-work for the absentee ballots. That's not the day of the election.
That's just the pre-work.
Correct.
Is 93,000.
Everything that takes place on election day in the precincts and and locally here for processing the absentee ballots makes up the remainder of that $90,000.
Oh, I thought you guys said every touch.
That's what I thought I heard.
That's what I heard was 4.2
Except for the counting.
ballots in 1 hour, except for the county.
That's counting separate.
Okay, so 93,000 plus the county.
Yes.
Wow.
So of that 182 figure there, Jerry, can you take 25,000 off?
We're guessing 20 to 25.
Well, we don't want to guess. We want to see the numbers.
Well,
This never happened before, though.
Yeah.
We're doing our best.
What
Yes.
Mark and I did was look at what I thought we needed, and there was.
I thought you said you were going to get us the numbers.
Pardon?
I thought you said you were going to get us the numbers.
No. When we were coming.
No, you're not going to get us the numbers.
I am going to get you the numbers.
Okay, thank you.
We're taking the 20 off right.
So this is a not-to-exceed number, Jack. We're good.
Now, I want to tell you something. I wouldn't be surprised if it cost more than this ultimately.
Oh,
There goes my not-to-exceed. Sorry.
Well,
you're fired.
why don't we let's round it up to 200 and next time have 2 seconds and cover this.
I agree. And
Like that.
here's what I'm going to say. And here's how confident I am that I think it's probably
Poor engineer.
going to cost more. I am so confident that it's going to cost more that if it costs.
Well, let's not take the 25,000 then if you're that confident.
No. Well, I mean, I'm trying to play ball here, guys. Okay. If it comes down to less than that, if after 3 elections I don't spend that much money, everybody on this board and their wife, I'm taking them to out to dinner at Ruth's Chris.
No,
But wait a minute, now you're incentivized to spend more money.
Exactly.
So you don't have to buy us dinner.
I want to
Wait
go
a
on the
minute
record.
here.
I'd rather buy you.
Under our ethics policy of declining that, as I'm not going to vote on a budget based on whether you're going to buy me and my wife dinner.
I was, but that's...
Cindy, a quick question. Is Social Security embedded in here for all of the temporary employees?
Probably not.
Well, for part of them, like the people who are that 93,000.
It's another about 7 or 8%.
That 93,000 is going to, because they're going to be working more out. If you make under $1,800, it's not included. So like the daytime workers may not go over that amount, the day of workers. But
You say not included, we don't have to pay Social Security if it's under 18?
But we may have to pay it for the people who are processing.
So this is, I guess just to summarize my thoughts, I was blown away when I saw that original number. This is the perfect storm in that we're investing more in the precincts, we're investing much more in the absentee, and we don't know where those people are going, right? I think in the first election, the presidential primary in March, we'll get a better sense for where and how people are going to vote and where we're going to have to tweak in the future. And then my second takeaway is I get the numbers, I did the numbers, and this 4.2 absentee ballots per hour, that's what history says we did, so I'm just extrapolating that forward. It just feels low to me. But that's based upon having no idea and never done the process. I can't say whether it's low or high, just my gut says it just feels low.
Yeah.
And so I think as part of the learning process for the March primaries, I think we have to continuously look at the process that we use for these absentee ballots to see if it's the most efficient process. Because when we're processing, all of a sudden, if it goes up to 60, 70%, we got to really carefully look at that process.
One of the things you have to be careful of when you're doing the absentee ballots is that you're constantly checking, you're constantly balancing, and we balance every single day. If we're off one, we go, let's go back and find out where this is at. And because you can't end up at election day going, oh, gee, I'm 50 off here, I'm 20 off here, I'm 10 off there.
That's what happened to the clerk in Southfield.
That's right.
Basically, she was off, and I think, sounds like she just
Made it up.
made it up.
Made it up. And so you have to balance every day. And I would encourage you to come in and watch how that process works during that primary, because you'll see how much actual kind of really mundane touching and getting the process down, because we take them and we put them in groups of 25. We alphabetize them inside of each precinct so that we can find them. When someone comes and says, oh, I've spoiled my ballot, I want a new one, I got to go and pull out the application, I got to match them up. So remember, at the end of the day, I got to attach that application to the ballot. You know,
Yeah, I've always thought that was odd because I always thought that was the oddest part of the process. It's nothing, a commentary on you or anything like that, that you have a return address on those ballots, because in a small town, I know my neighbor hates me and is not voting for me, and I know that ballot does not have their vote on. You know what I'm saying? Not that, I'm not saying you'd ever do anything like that, but
Jerry, how
I just
confident
thought that's the
are
oddest
you,
part.
based on Mark's premise number one, is we're going to go through the primary in March, and we can redo all this and say, okay, gee, we were way off, or we were right on. Are we confident, I guess even all of us sitting up here, are we confident enough that we can make the decision for the next one based on March?
well, what we can do is extrapolate, probably percentages of people who are going to AV. You can say, well, this looks like the trend. And bear in mind, I think we're going to learn a little bit about the election in November in
Livonia.
Livonia, because they're going to have a hotly contested mayoral race, and it's their regular election cycle. It's their general election. Now, it doesn't have governor or presidential on it, but we'll be able to see the uptick. We'll be able to see the uptick in AV voting over what they did in August. August, they were up 16%. Are they going to be up even more? And we'll kind of get a feel for it. But what you're going to see is that as each one of these elections proceed, you're probably going to have intensified recruiting for people to vote.
Sure.
Okay, so what we're going to do is, obviously, the budget's not going to be voted on until November 12th, so there's still time for adjustments to be made between Jerry, Mark, myself, Cindy, and you guys, if you have suggestions on the clerk's budget. We knew that this was going to be a big-ticket item for next year, so we wanted to spend the time tonight to go over it in great detail. Oh, yeah. So I just want to now open it up to the public. If anybody has questions on the clerk's budget or the elections budget. Pardon me? You're in for the ride. You're in for the long haul. Okay, that's good to hear. All right, then we're going to move on, because this is not a voting item tonight. And so we're going to move on now to item 5. Jeremy is still here. We haven't chased him out yet.
I need a quick break.
And you want?
Go ahead.
Taking a quick break.
Okay, we're just going to plow ahead here. So Signet Storm Drain Agreement is item F5. Jeremy?
Okay, in front of you is the Signet Storm Drain Agreement that is for the Signet Automated Cleaning Site, which is located on General Drive, and that's in the Gould Industrial Park. It's an existing building and a parking lot. They added a truck dock and some associated stormwater improvements to meet the Wayne County standards. So if this resolution is approvable, the township supervisor and clerk will execute the stormwater agreement and record it with the county, and the supervisor will sign the Wayne County maintenance permit.
Okay, sounds good. Any comments or questions from the board?
Wayne County's been working very closely with Signet to make
Yes.
sure that everything is on the up and up here.
Why, I mean, this is a routine thing. Drains, why did Wayne County have to get so involved?
Just because of the nature of their business being a cleaning business of
Industrial,
cleaning.
yeah.
Use a lot of water. Also, they store, I believe, on site. Do you want to wait for Bob, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, he's going to be right back. Yeah, and this is a company that is existing in the township, and this is an additional facility over on General Drive that they purchased and did a lot of improvements on the building, and they'll be hiring a number of new people. And
Over $3 million is what they've put into the building.
they put over
already.
$3 million into the building. This is, and these people were very helpful in getting the SAD for General Drive also as new tenants.
Bob, it's 3-3, you're the swing vote.
What's that?
Well, it's 3-3, it's...
No, I mean, yes.
I move to adopt Resolution 2019-9-24-90, authorizing the township supervisor to sign the Wayne County Permit C-51-272 and approve the storm drain agreement with Star Plymouth Property LLC, and authorize the township supervisor and clerk to execute same.
Okay, motion's been made by trustee Kermy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heisey?
Yes.
Trustee Heitman?
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Treasurer Clinton?
Yes.
Kermy?
Yes.
Trustee Dempsey?
Did you mean trustee Kermy?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay.
You read it.
He just
I
goes
an-
by one name now.
I answered anything.
He's like Cher, you know.
I vote yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Motion carries.
All righty, thank you. We're going to skip item 6, and we're moving on to item 7. This is the annual millage rate approval document.
Yep, thank you. As we've done every year, and as you know, we have to submit this form by the end of September. It's the L4029, which basically shows what our millage is going to be for the upcoming tax season that will appear on the December tax bill. This year, the millage rate is going to be 5.1884 across all those different line items. That is down slightly from last year due to the Headley millage reduction fraction. So it's 0.9976% of what it was last year.
So the very last line there, police and fire, date of election, November 2018. Original millage authorized by the voters was 1.2, correct?
Correct.
Thanks to Headley, it's already down to 1.1971.
Correct.
Partially offset by the increase in the taxable value of property.
Which would be a good time to give some money back.
All righty. Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I need a motion. Mark,
Mr.
you wanna do that?
Supervisor?
Is it all perfect? The numbers are right?
Yep.
Because this is critical.
This is very critical. It looks good to me.
Okay, let's go.
I move to approve the attached 2019 tax rate request form L4029 as completed by Treasurer Clinton with a millage request of 5.1884 to be levied on December 1st, 2019, and to authorize the township clerk and supervisor to sign the form and submit it to the county prior to September 30th, 2019 deadline.
Okay, motion's made by trustee Heitman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Dempsey. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Clerk Borba, yes. Treasurer Clinton?
Yes.
Trustee Kermy?
Yes.
Trustee Dempsey?
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz?
No.
Supervisor Heisey?
Yes.
And Trustee Heitman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is supervisor and trustee comments. I just want to give you an update on our next meeting. We will not have a study session on October 1st We do have a regular meeting on October 8th. As of now, we're looking at several items. One will be an amendment to our Watua swap agreement that is due to a change in the exhibits only. That does not, there's no substantive change to the agreement, but the county would like us to adopt some updated and cleaner looking exhibits. Okay.
We're going to have good background on that.
I will have a cover memo from Aaron Sprague.
It's unusual. The county comes back this late. Wow, they must have found something.
It's not a material change. I think it's just to better clarify what areas are being swapped.
Does the city of Plymouth have to take action on it also?
Yeah, everybody does. All the communities have to do this. So I think Plymouth City is voting on it like next Monday or something. We have a contract for the CDBG park improvements. This is, Mr. Schroet will be handling that. We have the Global CNC Stormwater Agreement, Plymouth Park and Eats Stormwater Agreement, and then budget discussion on general government items. I think Mark and I will probably have to brainstorm on what we want to do that night. We might just want to isolate a couple departments and just go through and talk about what some of the changes are. We've really, obviously, with police and fire and dispatch, those are the big three. But there are some, and with the clerk too this year, but there are some other items in building and information technology and some of the other.
Is park in that too, the township park?
Yeah, yeah. Right. Then all of that will be discussed. I don't know if we're going to get to it all on October 8th, but we're going to have continuing budget discussion. We are all supposed to have a special visit by our Congresswoman, Haley Stevens. So that's for our next meeting. And that's all I have. Bob?
No, I'm going to hold off on this till the next time. Go ahead.
Gary?
As Cindy said, increased building has added $150,000 to revenue. Part of the updates we have going on. The Burroughs building, the owners have agreed to spend $25 million, their own money, for infrastructure improvements. So additional water. Rivian has also agreed to expand some more. They've got 250,000 square foot of open, and they're waiting for any day now a major announcement of a company to come in and take over the entire fourth floor. So that's increased building and more revenue coming back into the town.
The $25 million is over how many years?
They want to spend it as quickly as possible. So they're looking at the next 2 or 3 years.
$25 million in that building in 2 years?
Yeah.
I find that hard to believe, but anyway.
Well, the street light alone is
that's a lot
$300,000,
of money for a
$400,000. So.
Okay.
Go.
All set?
Yep.
Jerry Vorva?
Yeah, and I also just wanted to pass on to the board that, when I met with the conference of Western Wayne, we discussed the issues with our federal and state legislators concerning election needs, that we would hope we could get some more money from the state in order to take care of all of this. But we did have that discussion. They were all in agreement that it's needed and that we're all going to be tested on this whole process.
Well, there's something we can ask our rep for when you have your one-on-one?
Yes.
More money in the budget, 2020 budget?
The budget's been approved by both the House and Senate today, so we'll see if the governor vetoes it or what.
It's on her desk?
Yeah.
It's on our desk.
Oh, boy.
Mark Clinton.
No, I'm all set.
Jack?
We've dealt with 2 SAD requests here in the last couple meetings, and I've heard comments about how this has been a 25-year-old policy. It's been changed. We've changed it a little bit here. The whole issue with what's equitable, and I would respectfully request that we have some kind of discussion about this apportionment issue. And is it really equitable to do it based on per unit when you've got these private drives with people that they're responsible for that? Are they getting the same benefit? Should that policy continue to extend? I'm not saying it should change, but I'd like to air it out and hear why we should continue to do it the way we've done it for 25 years.
Just a comment on that, if I may, because I would, certainly welcome that discussion. I think anything that takes money out of people's pockets a policy like that should be a board decision. But I would certainly welcome that discussion.
Anything else? No. Okay, Chuck?
I have a question. I might have missed this. Jerry, this thing that came from Perkins, from a law firm? This is not the $35,000 one from, this is another one.
This is all part of
Okay.
particular party to find voters. So they want to know who sent in ballots that came in too late. They want to identify them. They want to go get them and then recruit
So
them.
how much do you estimate that this is going to cost to do?
Well, we've already responded to it.
And what did you respond?
And we responded that we don't have those kind of records.
Okay. So no amount of money will
Yeah.
take care of that.
It's just that they may appeal, and then we may have to give them some data or allow them to come in and find data. So right now, it's just an example of what I was talking about, how there's going to be a lot of activity finding voters and causing an increase in number of voters.
I gave you copies of this recycling article. It gives good pricing, which is what I've been asking Sarah to try to find out, and I was able to find it here, but hopefully she'll be able to find out, see if this is true in here, but it's a good article.
Very good.
And we should be working hard to encourage compliance and clean stream for our recycling. So hopefully in e-news.
Actually, I just put an article today on our Township Facebook page about Free Press did another update on what not to recycle.
So
it's always a
constant vigilance.
Yep.
I will be there for the 9 o'clock on Monday to review the play structure.
Right.
All right.
Good.
And what's the cutoff date for ideas for the e-news?
We have a special edition e-news coming out next couple days.
Special edition. Okay.
So, but we are always looking for new ideas for the official October e-news. It'll be out the second week of October. So just send us an email. Okay. Public comments and questions? All righty. Hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Heitman?
I move we adjourn at 9:36.
Mr. Heitman has motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Borba. All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
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 Aye, aye.